The El Centro City Council for February 16th, 2016. If we could have roll call, please.
Councilmember Silva,
Present.
Councilmember Villegas-Walker,
Here.
Councilmember Garcia,
Present.
Mayor Jackson,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cardenas is absent.
Okay. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance with Councilmember Garcia, and then we'll be followed with our guest invocation by Pastor Dale Stout from the First Assembly of God.
Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will you bow your heads with me as we pray? Our Heavenly Father, tonight we are thankful that you have placed us here in this land. We're thankful for this city, this community in which we reside, where we as a people determine our own destinies. And we are thankful for the abilities that you give to each of us as we make rational decisions. We are mindful of these things tonight. So for those who have been called to lead, to those who make decisions for others, we ask, oh God, that you would give them wisdom in these deliberations. May each council member understand their role and remind them tonight, Lord, that their decisions affect an entire community, a community that is diverse and yet holds to values that are shared. We also pray over this community that you would continue to bless this city, that you would bring your blessings to rest over each home and over each resident. We ask that you would guide each of us to be compassionate toward those less fortunate than us, that we would, as a community, honor you with our shared lives. And so we commit these deliberations to you tonight. May your peace be upon each involved. And we ask these things in the precious and most wonderful name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Stout. Let's see. We don't have anything from last closed session, do we? Needs a report?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there was not a closed session held today, so there's nothing to report.
Okay. And there is no presentations or announcements by the mayor at this time. And our scheduled public comment has been rescheduled, so we'll move on to consent agenda. If there's any items we pulled, seeing none, is there a motion to approve consent items 2 through 9? Motion by Silva, seconded by Garcia. Please ballot. Passes 4-0 with 1 absent. At this time, we'll move on to
Sorry, the scheduled public comment has been rescheduled till when?
that. I'm not sure. Diane, do we know?
March 1st.
March 1st?
Thank you.
Okay. All right, at this time, we'll move to public hearing. Item number 10, public hearing to discuss the economic development subsidy to Cohen Power Sports. And our Community Services Director, Marcel Piedra, will do our presentation.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. The item before you is actually an item that we did a preliminary presentation to you back at your meeting of December the 15th of 2015 regarding a project proposal that Mr. Marty Coyne, the owner of the Imperial Valley Cycle Center, doing business as Coyne Power Sports, approached the Economic Development Division about a potential relocation of his existing business located on Imperial Avenue to the former Direct Auto Plaza site. Effective January 1st, 2014, there's an assembly bill known as 562, which requires that any time any local agency in the state of California is considering any type of economic development subsidy, we must hold a public hearing, which is what we have scheduled before here tonight, to consider this potential economic development subsidy. When we were first received the request for financial assistance from Mr. Coyne, we did proceed to send it to our consultants, Kaiser Marston and Associates, to conduct a financial analysis to determine whether or not the project that was being proposed, in fact, had a financial gap. Well, that financial analysis has been concluded, and as pointed out in this report to you, there is a financial gap of $937,000 that was determined based on the total project cost. The Assembly bill basically requires that we hold a public hearing, that we provide a report to you, which is attached to the council summary report, and in not less than 5 years, we need to come back and do another public hearing to report on how the project is doing, should the economic development subsidy be approved. So therefore, we're following that process as it relates to this project. Just a quick summary as to what we are considering with Mr. Coyne's potential project. A little bit of background, just again, a reminder, this is part of the presentation that was given to you back in December. This is a business that opened in 1981. It's currently operating at 1334 North Imperial Avenue here in El Centro. And you'll see in a picture here, they basically have outgrown that site, and so there's a need for them to consider relocation. They sell motorcycles, ATVs, side-by-sides, and watercraft. They currently employ 20 full-time employees with a payroll of approximately $1.5 million. This is their existing location. Again, based on their product line, they have pretty much outgrown this site. The project proposal here is the relocation of their existing operation on Imperial Avenue to the former Direct Auto Plaza. As you know, that site has been sitting vacant there for a number of years. Moving forward with the project, they anticipate moving into this new facility by December of this year. Their proposal is to rehabilitate the existing building there, which is approximately 39,450 square feet, and convert it into a modern showroom for their existing product line. They also want to expand their product line to include the sale of travel trailers and RVs. And they anticipated that in the next 10 years, they will employ 75 full-time employees.
Ms. Piedra, do we have some kind of an interim idea as to how many additional employees will be hired? I mean, that's 10 years from now, but like 5 years from now, do we think that the number will have increased by 10, 15, 20 people?
I believe that's based on the projection. That is what they anticipate. It's basically a gradual hiring in the next 10 years. But once they expand their operation, and they do anticipate at least within the next 5 years, 10 to 15, I believe that's the number that
And I think
was
in
provided.
the project proposals that we've approved in the past, there have been like annual reporting
That's
back to
correct.
the council, and I would assume that that's the same type of thing that would occur here.
Yes, we can do that. As indicated with this bill now, we have to come back, by government code, come back 5 years, but there's no reason why we couldn't come back sooner and report on the performance of the business. Not a problem.
But I think that's a very good point. I think that maybe Mr. Coyne can address that, but and when the time comes, Martin, right now, but when the time comes, what is the expected phasing of those
Sure.
jobs in household? What is this going to represent by next year, by year 2, by year 3, by year 4, so that there's benchmarks along the way to ensure that the economic development that we are anticipating from this, in fact, materializes in some kind of gradual phasing. That's a very good point, Ms. Walker. Can I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, absolutely.
This item has raised some comments from people. Marcela, how do we, tell me about the process that our consultant went to determine that there's in fact a $500,000 gap, and how can we be ensure that the numbers that were evaluated were in fact accurate and
Sure.
not inflated or
Sure.
underrepresented for the purposes of coming up with a number that worked?
Absolutely. Basically, whenever we get this type of request, and which has been our process basically when we have had these type of requests for any type of economic development assistance, whether it was redevelopment, when we had redevelopment dollars, we have an application process that we ask the project proponent to go through. In that application process, they provide obviously we understand what the project is, what it is that they intend to do, and so they provide to us those costs. In this particular case, there's construction costs involved, and anytime that there is the potential to assist with any kind of financial assistance from a government agency, it triggers prevailing wages, and that's why you see that increase. Now, one of the things that we did in order to determine, and obviously for Mr. Coyne's benefit, was to determine what that difference would be if this project was being done, without any kind of assistance from the city, and the project still had about a $640,000 financial gap. So the project has a gap. Obviously, it has increased to the $937,000 because he has to pay prevailing wages for the rehabilitation. Any construction work, he has to pay that if we're providing the assistance. So basically what the consultant does, and this company, Kaiser Marston, has been in business for many years. This is what they do. They do financial analysis for government agencies to determine whether or not there is in fact a gap. They compare the business to industry standards, and depending on the type of revenue that they anticipate doing, and based on obviously in this case, we did a 10-year projection, and their expenses, that's how the gap is determined. So from staff standpoint, we feel pretty comfortable that, we got the necessary information, obviously from the project proponent and also from the consultants, because they do a thorough review.
Are you aware of this company, either in this case or in other cases where their findings are contrary to an applicant's desire, or whether the gap is smaller than what people may have anticipated, or they questioned costs, or they question the mechanics of arriving at a number?
What happens whenever we get requests, especially when there's construction work involved or rehabilitation, we do ask for a quote or some kind of proposal from an actual contractor. And obviously, the consultant has the experience because they see these projects and they can determine whether or not those numbers are accurate. So the numbers do get questioned, and then we do go back to the project proponent and say, these numbers are just not based on what you're doing. That's why it's very important in the beginning to get an actual understanding of what is the project, because that determines what kind of costs we can see in that analysis.
Thank you, Marcelo.
Mm-hmm. Any more questions? Okay. So this is the site that we're looking at, approximately 6 acres. And again, it's the former Direct Auto property. Very good visibility in terms of the interstate and Interstate 8 and also 4th Street. This is what it currently looks like. And then these are what Mr. Coyne anticipates giving, obviously, once the rehab is done. This is what they are proposing for the building to look like. And then this is just another view. So the financial determination basically is based on an overall project cost of $7 million. That actually includes the acquisition of the property, and again, the cost to actually have the site rehabilitated, and all the cost, permit fees, and everything that is required to get him to move to that location. Approximately $3.5 million is for the actual hard construction cost, and again, it's going to be completed at prevailing wages, so that's increasing the cost of that construction. Over a 10-year period, based on, again, on the sales revenue projections that were anticipated for this project, we anticipate collecting $3.5 million of sales revenue in the 10-year period. So the project financing gap, as I pointed out, does have, in fact, a gap of $937,000, again, accounting for that prevailing wage payment. So the proposed sales tax sharing that we are considering for this project is a 50% to the city, and also a 50% with Coyne Power Sports. Now, based on this anticipated sales tax sharing percentage, and based on that gap, and again, just based on a scenario as to when potentially Mr. Coyne would get that gap reimbursed, it would be in the 6th or 7th year of the project. Now, we are not recommending that we go beyond the 10 years. So the way this would work is, as soon as obviously, if the sales are much greater, he can end up getting the full reimbursement of $937 much sooner. However, like I said, based on his sales projections, we do anticipate that it might take 6 to 7 years for him to complete that. But at no point will we go beyond the 10 years. If he doesn't meet the target, within the 10 years, then that's it. The agreement terminates. Or again, if in the 7th year he reaches that 937, then the agreement stops. And again, we're including in the reimbursement agreement the creation of those 75 full-time jobs.
And this, now, just for clarity, because I've seen these agreements written a couple of different ways. 75 full-time employees in addition to the current number of FTE, or total FTE at 75?
No, these are new jobs.
New jobs,
That's correct.
okay. Can-
So, 95?
But we could, and after we hear from Mr. Coyne, we could add a provision that says X number of those jobs have to be created within 5 years?
Yes, I believe that they would
Especially if,
probably be okay
if
with
you're
that.
thinking, Ms. Piedra, that the agreement, Mr.
That's
Coyne
correct.
is going to be so incredibly successful at this new location that he's going to, we're going to be done within
Sure.
7 years, then really not to our advantage to hold him out for 10 years to create 75 full-time jobs.
Sure.
right? So I'm
We can-
thinking
I'm
we may
sure
want
they
to
could
make
probably
a
consider that.
modification there. Because I think that we all are very, very much aware that, I mean, we face a certain level of scrutiny just funding projects that are city projects, let alone turning over, $937,000 to a private business development. So there's that additional scrutiny that I think that we need to be aware of.
For clarification, Cheryl, are you talking about the 75 full-time jobs? If Cohen Motorsports pays off the 937 in year 7, then the 75 full-time jobs would be in year 7?
No, what I'm saying is that perhaps the benchmark is that by 2021, say within 5 years, that he's created an additional 45 or 50 jobs, but that'll be based on what
I see.
Mr. Coyne
Okay.
has to say.
Okay. And basically, that concludes my presentation for the public hearing portion of it. So at this time, you can, if there's no additional questions, you can open up the public hearing.
Okay. Any other questions from council? No?
No, right now.
Okay, at this time, we'll open for a public hearing. We do have one speaker slip, and that is Mr. Marty Cohen. Come on up. If anybody else wishes to speak on this issue, there's speaker slips in the back. Please fill them out and get them to the clerk at the end of the dais.
Good evening. Thanks for your time. Marty Coyne, here to answer any questions you may have. As you know from our December presentation, kind of what our goals are. The only thing in some of the comments that you made is we're definitely not doing this project for fun. And there's a greater level of risk that appears to be with the participation that the city is participating with us. We hope that we don't see a 2008, 2009 come around again. That's the only thing I feel would inhibit employment, for example, things way beyond our control. It's our goal to grow it faster and get there much faster than anticipated. We did include, at least to staff, and maybe it didn't quite get into your study, was a projected sales and analysis over that 10 years that shows a gradual growth of employment and a gradual growth in sales. Be happy to share it with you. I think staff may have a copy of that. Maybe it just didn't come back from your consultant. So it does kind of project that all the way through. We actually are at about 20 jobs, and we actually start at 2016 of going to 28 jobs, 2017, 38 jobs, 42 jobs by 2018, et cetera, until we reach the 75. If we're going to do this, we want to do it right. So if we can get to 75 in 3 years, we want to do it. We don't know, we know our business, and it's been growing, and it's alive and well, but we don't know what the RV business is going to do for us. We plan on doing toy haulers. We plan on doing RV traders. If you look around town, you look at all the people who go to the desert, not only from our community, but we like to steal sales from other communities. There was a point in time that 20% of our sales here in El Centro came from Yuma, Arizona. And we'd like to do that with RV sales and whatever else we take on that would, complement our business. So, our employment base could even go much more to that, because by the time you do service and setup and PDI for RV traders that start at $25,000 and go all the way up to $100,000, that's very possible we can reach that revenue in a shorter period of time. So I'd like to think that's worst case scenario. We're optimistic. As most of you guys know, that we don't sit around and let the grass grow underneath our shoes. We go to work every day and we hit it very hard. And I think we shared with you in December, I think, Travis, if you can verify, I think we're a top 5 Polaris RZR dealer, I think, in the whole Southwest, and top 10 in the whole country. And Part of that, of course, is from our great customers that come from Imperial Valley, but we have quite a following with the racing involvement that we've done. As you know, we did the score races. We sell to score racers. We sell to our friends and sponsors from Las Vegas and San Diego and Yuma and LA, and that's helped grow on our base and also bring sales tax and jobs into Imperial Valley. And our plans are to continue to do that. We just feel, if you've ever been by my store on a weekend or a busy weekend, people are clogging the streets, unloading their razors off of trailers, and we're full. So we're excited about this opportunity. We think, and I wouldn't take this chance if I didn't feel positive about where we're going with the business and what we can do with it. We've had other opportunities. We've looked at other cities. We've looked at areas in the county, but El Centro has been our home for 35 years. As I explained to you in December, I have 2 of my children out of my 4. 3 of them work for me. We've been there 35 years. There's the next 35 years. We don't look at this as a 10-year agreement. We look at this as a 35-year agreement, or take it into the next generation. My son Travis already has 2 sons, or I have 2 grandsons. He's already looking forward to get them involved in the business. So a lot of great things moving forward. It's a lot further and a lot longer than what's anticipated. Is it a big step for us? Absolutely. But do I feel we're capable of taking it to the next level? We want to become a regional dealer and not just the local dealer, and that's to the benefit of Imperial Valley. Jobs that stay here, sales tax that stay here, and I think we have the track record to prove it. Not only longevity, as long as we've been here in El Centro and in Imperial Valley, but like I say, I have the next generation on board to make a run at it. We have taken, really tonight is the last piece to the puzzle. We've been through all of our differences with the seller. So if the city is willing to work with us, we're willing to close escrow here in 30 days or less. We're already drawing plans. It's our intent to get right on board, and we want to be on board, open for business before the start of the next selling season, which typically is October. I don't know, do you have any questions I can answer for you, Councilman?
Would you be amenable to adding a shorter-term FTE target?
FTE, help me out.
The full-time.
Full-time equivalent employees, so say by 2021, 5 years out, would you be amenable? I think you mentioned that you had a projection.
We're going to go all in.
Right.
And there's so many things that are not controlled by us. So it's hard to do that. I mean, I'd be happy to talk to you if you want to do a 5-year review, and if we're, I don't know what you're asking me where to be.
Maybe, what is your projection for 2021 on your projection sheet?
2021 would be 58 employees.
That's that would be my question. Would you be amenable to the participation agreement, including that milestone in 5 years and then the 75 in 10 years?
I don't have a problem with it. Like I say, we're going to go. Now, if I came back to you and says, gee whiz, we're in a 2009 condition, hopefully the council would be understanding. We're still at risk and on the hook, as I know the city's making a contribution, but you got to realize this is an incentive. If I never get there, I don't get those, whatever you want to call it, rebates or participation back. So the debt and the $7 million is all on me, and if I'm fortunate enough to build this company right and do everything just right, I get a little bonus back from the city. So just to kind of let you know, it's not like, I explained to you what we did in Banning. It was a little bit different. They believed in us up front. There's redevelopment dollars. We were the last guys that kind of got it after asking special permission from the state of California. They did everything up front. They bought the dealership, they funded remodels, they did everything, and I understand we're in a different place these days. But realistically, this store has always been bigger than that store. We feel we can do better, and like I say, I think you mix a little bit of experience with youth. We're excited about the future.
Marty, when you work with Banning in your project out there, you also had some anticipated growth and employment projections as part of the RDA agreement over there. Did those projections materialize for you out there?
Well, we've only been open 6 months at our new location, so it's hard to give you the end result.
Are you seeing increased
I will
traffic?
tell you, our business is up 40%. We have hired more employees, but I haven't had to, my agreement with them was a 10-year deal as well. It was only talking about employment growth, and there was a dollar amount and a goal put on that we have to achieve, and we're on track to achieve that in a shorter period of time.
Mr. Garcia?
We're very proud of what we've accomplished. We took a dealership. One thing Marcella didn't show you, I think that we showed you in December, was the dealership that we bought up there, or the city bought on the redevelopment deal, looked 5 times worse than Direct Auto did. And if you, I encourage you, it appears to be everybody's, what do you call it, the Starbucks stop when you're going over the hill to LA, but I encourage you to take the 22nd Street off-ramp in Banning, and you'll see the new Coin Power Sports Building. I'd encourage you to walk in because it's as good as they come, and we're very proud of it.
So you're projecting that if everything goes well with the city's involvement and you can close escrow, that you're looking to be ready to operate at that site by the next sales season?
We're going all in, yes, sir. We're going to do it as, you know, we have one under our belt, which makes me a little more confident. You know, like I said, we had to add a 10,000 square foot showroom besides rehab the existing dealership that was there. We did hire locals. Duggan's Construction was that contractor. We were pleased using them, and we were pleased, very pleased, the way it turned out. So was all of our manufacturers. As you know, franchises are just not a dime a dozen. When it comes to Ford, Chevy, Honda, Yamaha, whatever the case may be, as they scrutinize. I mean, we've been very outdated. We don't have factory signs up, and so we knew it was a matter of time we had to do something. So it's just a great opportunity. But I forget what your original question was. It was still getting back. We're prepared to go.
This is the next item.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, the other thing too is, and I know you said it's been scrutinized a little bit. You know, one can look at $937,000, but realistically, I look at, you know, glass half full, glass empty. This is an opportunity for the city to gain $2.4 million in sales tax, not spend $937,000. You know, there was a topic came up that Coin would do this anyway, and I'm not so sure that would be the truth. Realistically, if everything doesn't fall perfect for me, I may retire next year and make it my kid's problem over the next couple, 3 years. I mean, so I do have a plan B, and maybe a plan C. We've looked at Mondo's, as I've shared with you before. We've looked at a lot of different options, but I like where we're at today. I like the opportunity. I like the location. The city, that's prime retail sales tax earning. As you know, it was an escrow for doctors. No generation of sales tax or jobs, or not many, for the city of El Centro. And I will be honest with you today, I got off the phone today with the state of California. That is their first choice for the Highway Patrol, and the minute something goes wrong in this deal, they are going to take that over, and they're going to control the whole 6.6 acres. And that came directly from the horse's mouth today, just to kind of give you an update of, and that place has been, and if it was so easy, how come somebody hasn't done anything with it for the 6 or 7 years that it's been sitting over there blighted? So everybody thinks it's a walk in the park, it's a piece of cake. It's not, guys, and we're willing to put the time and effort to make something happen and have the city be proud of it.
Well, I'll say, from my point of view, I'm very encouraged. I very much look forward to this project. I drive by that facility every single day, and sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, and it is definitely a blight to our city. It's a corridor to our city. Everybody coming off Interstate 8 sees that. And I think the renditions that you have architecturally, I think is going to be a great plus for the city as far as coming in. I honestly think that your projections, well, we're all going to hope that they're conservative, because I actually think that you might surpass those, adding the new lines of the RV trailers and such that you don't currently have, and being that you have that freeway traffic, everybody going out to the dunes. I anticipate, you know, maybe we'll be done with this deal in 5 years, you know, and that would be great for everybody concerned.
Be great for all of us.
So, you know, and also, do you still have the letter of intent from Smart and Final for your current
Yeah,
facility?
you know they're involved in those Hagen's deals in San Diego. I think it's been kind of temporary tabled, but our goal is to go back as soon as they get that under control. I don't know if you follow the bankruptcy of, who was it, Hagen's, and I think Sprouts and Smart and Final came in and bid gazillions of dollars for 40-some locations in Southern California, and it appears, at least interimly, that El Centro is not their priority like it was, but we're going to chase that.
Expanding that.
Yes.
Okay, exploring that, I should say. Any other questions? No. All right. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing that there's no more slips or no more speakers, we'll come back to council.
This is just a public hearing portion, so it'd be probably appropriate now. You want to make reference to that other comment.
Oh,
Because this is just the public hearing
Yeah.
portion.
that's true. Okay, so I do have one email that came in that needs to be read into the record. This came from a James Heisenberg, and the company is Truth Be Real. So the comment was, I'm writing in regards to a tax sharing proposal being presented to the city council meeting tonight. How can the council honestly consider handing out a tax rebate totaling close to $1 million to Mr. Cohen? Granted, the location is dilapidated and in need of some serious work, but that is the risk you take in purchasing a piece of property like that. Mr. Cohen is a super successful business individual, but this rebate/sharing proposal is ludicrous. He is going to move into that property regardless of the decision, or he wouldn't entertain the idea in the first place. The city of El Centro can have a much greater impact by spreading $937,000 of tax sharing program among multiple businesses across different industries. This proposal is akin to giving a tax rebate to Walmart, my opinion, of course. Just reading that into the record. Okay. So that was public hearing, so then we come back to new business, right?
We'll close the public hearing and move on to item 11.
Okay. So at this time, we'll close the public hearing, and we will move into item number 11, new business, redisbursement agreement with Cohen Motorsports for economic development subsidy. Ms. Marcela Piedra.
Yes, basically this item, the consideration for the reimbursement agreement with Coin Power Sports is the actual companion to the public hearing. As included in your report, this is actually a draft reimbursement agreement. We are working with our interim city attorney to finalize the agreement, and of course, we've talked about certain changes now, so we're going to incorporate those as well. And what we are asking for is consideration, basically, to work with this draft reimbursement agreement, and then once the agreement is finalized by legal counsel and also, of course, acceptable to Mr. Coyne, then we can proceed with actually executing the agreement.
So to that point, the requirement with regard to the certain number of full-time equivalent employees, that would be part of
Basically, what we would
attachment
do,
number 3?
it would be
built
attachment
into-
number 3, yes, we
Okay.
would incorporate it as part of the schedule of performance. And then we'll also include in there an annual monitoring of employment. And then with a report basically back to council, of course, we have to do the 5-year anyways.
Right, so, Ms. Piedra, not only the reporting of the annual reporting of employment, but also of this, you'll keep us apprised of the sales tax and where we're at in
Yes.
the.
And actually, the way, and that's part of the changes that are going to be done, and in that particular case, Mr. Coyne finds it acceptable. You will see that in the actual draft agreement under financial terms, which is on page 118 of your backup, which is Article 5, financial terms. Right now, the draft states that it's going to be done on a quarterly basis. Well, we're going to do annual basis.
Okay.
So on an annual basis, we will do the reimbursement. So there is going to be that reporting. So we could actually, include that as part of the staff's report, is what that sales reimbursement is along with employment.
Okay, and do we also include the milestones as to, escrow is going to close on the property within a certain period of time? Construction's going to get started within a certain period of time?
Yes, that's correct. And
Estimated completion, all of that will be part of.
the schedule of performance,
schedule
attachment 3.
Attachment 3.
Yes, the draft, again, that you have does not have those because those are
Right.
going to be included in there, but those are all elements that we are including in there as part of the schedule of performance.
So I guess we just have to feel comfortable that city attorney or interim city attorney and Ms. Piedra will accurately capture our desires with regard to that schedule of performance.
Yes, and basically, and that's why I have this slide relating to financial determination. The essence of this agreement is really what you have before you, where we are recognizing that, it's a $7 million project. Part of it, obviously, is going for construction, that it's a 10-year agreement, that we anticipate, the $3.5 million. and that we are assisting up to that gap of 937,000, and obviously the creation of the full-time employment, and obviously the sales tax sharing percentage that is being recommended. So in essence, this slide summarizes what the elements of the agreement are. Now it's just a matter of putting it in and incorporating the milestone to be reached in terms of employment in the next 5 years.
Okay. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I think the issue of the sales tax is easy to figure out, but what would happen in a circumstance in which the projected jobs did not materialize as we are anticipating?
Well, basically, it would be almost the same position as the sales revenue. I mean, we are, and again, I mean, we're trying to be conservative on the sales, but there could be the situation, and hopefully that does not occur, where, you know, the sales projection that is anticipated doesn't happen. And so you always run the risk with these projects that, you know, or there could be, you know, reasons beyond the control of, you know, the company, where maybe they're recruiting for a certain type of position and they're not successful in recruiting it, or there's different reasons why, in a lot of cases, businesses do not meet their milestone. But for the most part, I think, you know, with the projects that we have assisted, they've actually been able to meet those milestones.
And we have done similar
Yes.
agreement with other entities as well, right?
That's
Either
correct.
through RDA or through,
Yes.
tax
Basically,
revenue
it was
sharing.
through redevelopment.
Redevelopment.
Right.
Our city attorney.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, just to be clear, I think it's important that the elements you've talked about, the employees and milestones related to that. I also heard talk about actual costs, and I'm not sure what direction you wanted to go with that. If it turns out the actual cost is less, or the gap turns out to be less based on construction bids and things. I didn't hear any resolution of that.
I think we
But
need, I think
it's
we need to
important
come
that you
back.
that you detail those kinds of things in this agreement, because what the agreement says, if there's a default and the default isn't cured, the city can terminate it. So there's a significant risk for everybody in terms of what could happen. And so if everybody has a clear understanding up front, I think that helps later on with respect to potential for misunderstandings in terms of number of employees and when and all of that sort of thing.
Like I pointed out earlier, if I go out of business, the city doesn't pay a dime. You know, the risk and the burden is all on me. Basically, what the city's done with maybe redevelopment being gone is you're offering me incentive based on performance. You know, so if I don't perform, you're not writing a check. Or if I happen to go out of business, you're gonna get at least a building, you know, so it's not like you're giving a bunch of money up front. I have to do A, B, C, and D in order for that to happen. So the city is so much better off than other deals that you have probably done in the past or other cities have done, because with redevelopment, that's the investment and risk that happens up front. And in today's mode, in this particular agreement, there's nothing up front and risk on behalf of the city. So we ask not to tear it apart so much that it doesn't kind of make it worthwhile if we don't hit the exact employment number, the exact gross dollars. Basically, you're giving me 10 years. You're only going to reimburse me for the sales tax that's been earned for that period of time. And other agreements that we've either reviewed or other parties that have participated, and even other cities in the valley, the sales tax sharing was even higher, but we felt this was fair for everybody. But you know, none of us have crystal balls, and so to narrow it down into 3 years for this and 2 years for that, or if you shave a couple dollars there, you know, we're in it for the big picture and the end result. So, you know, if we end up with an agreement that, you know, again, there's you know, eyeballs on every single move, it's just going to make it really, really difficult.
I think what we've asked for, just for clarity, Mr. Coyne, I think what we've asked for is annual reporting back on the status of the agreement,
Okay.
and a 5-year projection as to where you're going to be with your employees,
Okay.
and a final detailed cost on what your construction costs end up being. Those are
That's
the
it.
three
That's the
things.
only
So I don't think we're trying to hold you under a microscope and create a ginormous checklist, because that's not our intent. We have the deal points right here, it's just that we have, I think, those 3 milestones. And
Okay.
I want to add a couple of other things, and if you wanted to comment on, we do not define in the agreement. I think we need to add as a definition of what do we mean by a full-time equivalent employee? Are we talking about a 30-hour employee? Are we talking about a 40-hour employee? I think that that's something that we can negotiate with Mr. Coyne. I also don't see in this agreement right now an indemnity provision that if Mr. Coyne does not pay prevailing wage for those construction improvements, I don't want there to be an opportunity for the trade organizations to come back to us and say, well, you know, we weren't paid prevailing wage in that because of our involvement. So I think that there needs to be some kind of an indemnity
think there
provision to
was,
protect
wasn't
the
it?
city.
There's an
I
indemnity
believe
agreement in
in the financial paragraph, like section 5.
There
Okay,
is-
I didn't see it
I did
labeled
agree
that
to
way,
that,
so
and
let me
it is
see.
in there.
And I
Okay,
think,
wait,
are
wait.
we gonna go, what's the legal definition of an FTE? Is it 29 and a half hours or more?
Well,
Is that what the legal definition is? 29 or
I-
29?
I'm not aware of a,
If you use the federal term for health coverage, it's 30 hours.
30 hours?
Anything over 30 hours, you start to get the health under the Affordable Care Act. So you may want to look at it as the 30 hours.
So maybe we should just define an FTE as 30 hours or more. You comfortable with that? I don't think it's the goal of the council to micromanage this deal. I think we all want it to be successful, at least I know I do. I believe my colleagues do also. So I think, you know, we haven't done a whole lot of these over the past several years, and so we're just being cautious because, as you know, we'll get criticized one way or the other. So it just seems to happen that way.
and I would just ask the city attorney to revisit the language in that second paragraph of Article 5, because we talk about defending the city and holding us harmless, but we don't talk about an indemnification. And I think that we need to be clear that that's what we intend.
In regards to prevailing wage?
Yes.
Okay. Dennis, you can probably put some language in there on that?
yes.
Okay. And Mr. Cronin, you're fine with that? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Well, no, I don't have any questions, but I am going to say that I'm going to support the project. I think that I'm going to rely on our consultant and the fact that the numbers that they reviewed and evaluated are accurate, and that, in fact, there is a financial gap that could put the project in jeopardy, and so then we see nothing. We're going to continue to see an empty building that's been empty for I don't know how many years, and no prospect for that. I don't like the idea of a government agency taking over that facility, because then we lose sales tax revenue and property tax revenue, and in the long run, I think it's going to be more detrimental to the city. Also, I believe that Mr. Coyne last time talked about the expansion of and the addition of additional retail operation around the property that would also generate tax revenue to the city, not subject to these restrictions. I think that the comment that was made, that was read into the record earlier, kind of implies that we're giving this money to Mr. Coyne, and as he pointed out, this is based on new revenue coming into the city, so there is no loss to the city immediately. There's gain that would be acquired through additional retail revenue. So I think, for all those reasons, I think it's time to, it'll regenerate the area, additional sales tax, additional jobs. We know that Mr. Coyne is a very successful business person, and I know that he's going to make this work, hopefully a lot sooner than what we are anticipating here. So for all those reasons, I will be in support of the agreement.
Is that a motion?
That would be a motion, yes.
Other comments? Okay, there's a motion by Silva, a second by Walker. Any other comments? Please ballot. Passes 4-0 with one absent.
Yay.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Go get 'em.
Marty, I'm mayor for 9 more months. I want to do a ribbon cutting at your place.
Make you guys proud. If I can just say one quick second. We're just going to ask for staff and council to support us on fast-tracking our permits so we can go to work right away. Oh, it just happened to be. Hi, Norma, how are you?
Slow track.
And we are going to pursue trying to get that left turn lane back, and either it's going to be pre the city getting Caltrans or 4th Street back, or maybe afterwards. And I know Mr. Hagan's in the audience, but we're going to ask for council support on that. We feel to grow that and even bring more retail into the city and more jobs, that's pertinent. We feel we have a plan that would not cause any accidents or any traffic congestion. So again, thanks for your support. We're going to work hard. We'll make the city proud, and hopefully see us our grand opening in October and November.
We look forward to it.
All right, guys, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item, item number 12, 2016 service area update. Ms. Norma Villacana.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. I'm happy to report that we have completed the update to our service area plan. As you may recall, and from the staff report, the service area plan was completed back in 2006. It's been 10 years. One of the requirements of LAFCO in order to approve any further annexations is that we update our plan every 5 years. So the document, we've given you a hard copy. Hopefully you've had a chance to review it. We've also, the final service area plan was completed with the cooperation of all the city departments. We requested updated information, also with the assistance of Rick Engineering, and Brian Mooney will be presenting the presentation tonight. So I would like to, most of you know Mr. Mooney, but introduce you to Mr. Mooney.
Thank you very much, Norma. And again, it's a pleasure to be here, as it always is. Just for your information, Rick Engineering, Mooney Planning Collaborative merged with Rick Engineering approximately a year ago. I manage the Community Planning Sustainable Development Division, which includes landscape architecture, urban design, community planning, environmental studies. So, again, I just feel like I'm part of Imperial Valley, and particularly the city of El Centro, so I'm very pleased to be here. For those of you that don't know, also I wrote the last service area plan, so sort of coming back. Just going to run through. This one is a little different in some of the areas that we've had in the past. Basically, from the standpoint of we added schools, that's a pretty major issue in relationship to how you're doing, particularly having been involved with projects in the past here in El Centro, working a way to identify some of those school areas. But as we know, this is required by the LAFCO, Local Agency Formation Commission. It does have to be updated every 5 years, and specifically it's required when you're looking at annexation. And I know Lotus Ranch is going to be on the docket in the very near future, so it's important for that particular project. We currently sit at about 43,000 and change, 43,500. We're projected to go to 53,176 in 2020. All of these statistics, by the way, are through SCAG, and then we've verified them with a few other organizations in relationship to that. So this is really showing us that phasing of projections, public services, and then financings. And we've gone through every department. Public service facilities, this is something new from the old one. We actually are looking at a metric of looking at square footage per 1,000 residences, with ultimately evaluating your current administrative facilities at 26,800, including your city hall, public works, personnel building, council chambers, community services building. Hopefully, this gives you as I say, a metric in relationship to look as your city grows, your administrative services may need to expand it, and this gives you something to look at as that growth goes on, and you can start looking at when you may want the new city hall or some other facility. Drainage facilities, there's been a lot of changes, by the way, in relationship to how we're looking at water runoff, clean water programs, and so we are looking at this. We have performance standards here associated with the 10-year storm, the MS4 requirements, the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, FEMA, and of course the IID system, and how you fit into that. In relationship to the future demand, that's going to really relate directly to the types of development that you're bringing in relationship to your annexations. Your funding processes are going through developers, general fund drainage, enhanced infrastructure financing district, and then your water, wastewater, storm rate study update. Fire facilities, performance standards meet 90% of response times in EMS. I want to emphasize too, by the way, we did have a very good response from all of your departments in relationship to that, particularly your fire department and your police department, in working through these. And what we're attempting is a minimum of 10 sworn personnel available at all times. You'll find the same sort of thing in relationship to police, where we're looking at a metric which looks at how many are available at all times. Adequate facilities, personnel equipment exists today. The future demand is that we are looking at a need for a fourth fire station in the southern area of the town in relationship to that. By the way, when we look at the location of the stations, we're also looking at your circulation system and how that fits in. And then we have our funding sources there. Law enforcement, this is new standards that we've brought in, working with the police department, but also working with your city manager's office. 5 police personnel on duty at all times. So again, looking at, very similar to your fire staff, we're looking at a ratio and a metric that puts that there. At least 60% of total sworn officers available are for patrol duty. Up to 60% of patrol resources used on calls for services, mandatory administrative activities. 1 non-sworn personnel for every 2 sworn officers, 1 patrol car for every 2 sworn officers. Staffing ratio goal. We want to emphasize this is a goal. It's not something that is always met on a regular basis, but 1.75 officers per 1,000. In the future, I think I'll jump right to that. We are looking at a new police facility, new substations in northern southern portion SOI, and potentially more personnel vehicles. And then we have the funding sources. Library facilities, we have added some new metrics here too. Now, I'm going to jump down. So 1 is a square footage in relationship to building. And as for those of us that, we sometimes hear the criticism of libraries aren't necessary anymore. We actually are finding libraries becoming a more and more critical part of our social system for a lot of people that maybe don't have access to computers and a number of other things. We're using a metric of volumes here, and that is kind of the old metric, but in relationship to the computer system, I think that's going to be one of the key things we're looking at. We also recognize that you're building a new facility based on the impacts to the old library. Future demand, again, the ratio of library space will directly relate to your population growth. Parks and Recreation, that's probably one of the toughest ones we've seen in relationship. The 5 acres per 1,000 is pretty standard we see throughout the state. And you currently are acting at a deficit, a pretty large deficit in relationship to 116 acres. So parks is one of the things you really want to be targeting as a city and moving forward. So when you're looking at new development coming in, when you're looking at opportunities, you really want to be identifying that. As I said, we see the future demand actually increasing to about 172,000 based on 172 acres based on your population's projections through 2025. You may, and we've looked at this in the schools, I'll talk a little bit about that too, look at shared facilities. I spent a lot of time with the school districts in relationship to looking at how we could do some things possibly better in that case. Circulation, you may or may not know, but we've historically been using, you probably heard me, amongst other things, on environmental impact reports talk about level of service A through F. And if you're waiting at the stoplight more than 3 times before you go through the intersection, you're probably seeing an F service level. We're moving away from that just as an in relationship to traffic engineering, and we're looking at VMT, which is vehicle miles traveled. And we're trying to, again, encourage a less emphasis on the car and a greater emphasis on alternative forms of transportation. And that's one of the things that ultimately in the circulation facilities in that aspect, we're going to look at how we can have something called complete streets, a little more pedestrian friendly. And you've got a great downtown here, and how we can emphasize that ultimately to greater, but also public transit and future demand. So that's one of the things that we'll be looking at in relationship to new projects coming down. Wastewater facilities, I think you're currently operating at 50%. You have a lot of capacity. Once you get to 80% with the growth, then you're going to need to be looking at increasing capacity in relationship to that. But currently, you're in a good position there. Water facilities, in relationship to that, similar. System pressure pipelines, everything appears to be functioning without major issues or future. And then I said the new school. This is a new section, the school facilities. It is something that we are seeing capacity issues in your schools. They have wanted to make sure that we highlight these types of issues in relationship to bringing it as the development comes in and how that is. It is understood, though, that they're only going to get what the state allows within the fees, but that is something that we've identified and looking at future demand. Of course, charter schools will be another part of the solution, so there are going to be more than just one approach to just the school aspects. I think this is a great blueprint for you to look at and have as a tool to evaluate projects and evaluate how it's contributing to your growth in relationship to the future and a balance of the needs of the city. Next steps will, after your approval, we'll go to LAFCO for its approval. I did want to mention that Jurg at LAFCO, Huberger, has reviewed this in concept and basically, again, agreed that it's complete and in compliance with the law. That's my presentation. If there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bonilla. I read the document and a couple of questions. One, I don't know if it's you or Norma, but Norma, was there any kind of cross-check with our 2050 vision and see that these plans align with our strategic plan that we adopted?
Yes, we, during our completion of the service area plan, we used our, first of all, we based it on SCAG population growth. And also, we based it on our strategic plan, and we looked at all those documents that we have in place.
Okay.
So it's a combination of all the documents we have.
Okay. Thank you, Norma. I think the one area that I probably read with a little more concern than the others has to do with our law enforcement facilities and our shortage of officers on the street and how much more we need to do to kind of bring that to better levels. I'd like to ask either the chief or our commander to give us an update on the study that we commissioned 4 or 5 months ago, Alvaro, on kind of looking at what would be an adequate staffing ratio for the city. Can you give us an update as to where we are with that?
Absolutely, sir. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So a couple months ago, we came to the council. We were engaged a consulting project, and the number that's used in our general plan and that's proposed in the plan before you is a ratio of officers per citizen. As I did a little bit of research, that there's not much empirical evidence to support having a ratio of any number. And really, agencies in California vary everywhere from 0.9 all the way to 2.2, depending on what their community and their local government deems as necessary. So the study that we've actually engaged does a detailed workload analysis, and it'll come back and ultimately give us a figure of how much time each officer has to conduct proactive law enforcement work. And based off of that ratio, which will be something that we'll have to, again, talk amongst command staff and bring in the city manager and council to find out what would be the optimal ratio. But this consulting company will actually give us, this is the range of what we've seen throughout the country and what we would recommend as far as proactive law enforcement time available. Our estimates, just based off of what we've seen, is that it's going to be closer to around 1.5 per 1,000 instead of the 1.75 that's in our general plan. But even that calls for an increase of about 18 personnel over what we have now.
Okay. What's the timing?
So we had our kickoff meeting about 3 weeks ago, and the estimates initially were 4 to 5 months from then. We have run into a little bit of logistical issues because our records management system is housed by the sheriff's office, so just a little bit of logistics, but it seems like we're working through them, so hopefully we won't have too much of a delay there.
Okay. Thank you. And I did ask you about this, Alvaro, is on the, there appears to be a typo on page 52 of the report under where it identifies the numbers of officers. I don't think that we have 30 school resource officers, correct?
Correct. We have 3.
Okay, so
It'd
that's
be nice
just a
if we had
piece.
30. Put in work.
Okay. Thank you for right now. I may have other questions later.
I think that one of the things, since this is still a draft, one of the things that we don't need to go into a lot of detail on, but I think that we need to at least acknowledge that the City of El Centro owns El Centro Regional Medical Center. That is considered a public facility that ultimately we have ownership and control over. I don't think we want to add a whole analysis on hospital or medical care or anything else, but certainly maybe a paragraph at the most, maybe just a couple of sentences to explain that ownership relationship.
Mr. Garcia? Anything? I just had one comment. We're certainly lacking in our parks, and
Oh, big time.
you know, and we I know we have a couple meetings coming up with staff and our Community Services Commission also, our Community Enhancement Task Force regarding potential park, as well as another park that we need to look forward to. So hopefully we'll be addressing that, but it does put some emphasis on the fact that moving forward, we definitely need to address that for our residents and not only the staffing levels for our public safety, but obviously our parkland for our residents, so. Yep.
I have another question for maybe Ms. Viacana. Do we tie in RENA at all and the projected needs for our housing? And if we don't, can we?
We didn't in this particular aspect, but I'm sure we could.
I think that tie-in would be really good. RENA is the Regional Housing Needs Assessment.
Right.
So that, because that's an obligation that we have to make sure that those numbers are identified and that we're planning for those, let's go ahead and tie that in.
Sure.
I think that's an excellent point, Ms. Walker, in that one of the things that we looked at, Mr. Mooney, when we were doing our strategic plan, and also hearing from developers, is the fact that we're not building many homes in El Centro.
No.
And so I don't even know that we're building enough homes to meet the anticipated demand just based on population growth. And through those discussions, the staff is going to be kind of reevaluating our development standards and perhaps reducing lot sizes and a few other things to try to motivate or incentivize development in the city of El Centro. But I think as we are today, I don't even know that from a housing perspective that we can accommodate that many people, because we're just not building many homes inside the city of El Centro.
Yeah, we do, as I say, you do have a 300-plus, 600-plus unit project in process right now.
Right.
So there are some things that you may not have seen yet. Hasn't got the planning commission, but
But do they meet the LMI requirements
no,
that within,
not RENA,
yeah.
not at all. That's
So-
why, as I said, I'll make sure we add something, because again, affordable housing, it's one thing to have housing, but it's another one to have a cross, selection of housing for all economic groups.
Thank you.
Mr. Garcia, anything? No? Okay.
I think the only thing that I'd like to add, Mr. Mayor, if I could, and it's not necessarily tied to this, but I think tied back to the study that we commissioned. I think, that our shortfalls in terms of law enforcement are pretty serious. I think that we, as a council, need to, as a city, need to kind of develop a plan to address that, and perhaps have, once we get a more definitive numbers and better numbers, it come up with a remediation plan, so that over a number of years we can plan on try to mitigate that deficiency, because I think that's a very serious deficiency. We all heard it when we were, up and talking to people, and last year during campaign season. So I think that's something that when the time comes, I'd like to see us move forward.
Yeah, it's definitely
Well,
a concern.
I think that we probably should be mindful of that going into this budget season. I
Right.
mean, if we're thinking that, oh, yes? Okay,
We said budget, and he got all excited.
I know.
No, just in reference to the plan, so with a primary goal of what we would really consider realistic of a 1.5 to 1 ratio, is in all honesty, that 1.75 puts us 26 positions short, which is, 40% of our staffing, which is, again, an excellent goal, and we have a plan to put them all to work in different areas and services we could provide to the community. But at a 1.5 to 1 goal, we actually presented a 5-year staffing plan that would allow us, over the next 5 years to actually get us up to the 1.5 to 1. and be able to provide services to our community that we feel are in need that we're unable to provide now, which would be a traffic unit, making sure that we can augment our canine unit, which has been a tremendous success over the past year, get us more involved in community services, and be able to actually expand our community outreach efforts and increase our participation with local task forces.
Well, I think obviously what we want to focus on is where are those areas that we're having the greatest challenge, right? So the property crime is just like off the charts, so what's the plan to, maybe the community outreach is going to be
Exactly.
more helpful, a gang unit?
And that's where involvement with the local
Right.
task forces, because we can actually use them as a
Right.
force multiplier. Well, we could, with our participation of 1 or 2 task force agents, we could bring 25 into the
Right.
city to help us deal with those problems.
Okay.
And again, traffic enforcement is a huge issue. We had over 800 accidents last year alone. And again, we need an active traffic unit to do that, so.
And Commander, can you, we're budgeted for 54?
52 sworn.
52, and
Yes.
currently we have?
Currently, we have 48 on the roster.
All right.
And how many are posted? How many open vacancies are we currently recruiting for within the police department?
We're recruiting for all of them,
Or
Yeah.
4?
yes.
For 4?
Do we have any in the
Yes.
pipeline right now?
We do. We do have a couple in the pipeline. We're looking at entry levels to be able to send people to the academy in May. Hopefully they'll pan out. As well as we have a couple entry levels that are academy graduates that we're hoping to have them work out.
That's good.
And I'll just add that wearing a different hat, although I don't have that hat at IBC anymore, the Post Academy used to be under my supervision at IBC, and that's because of some changes that no longer is, but IBC is still moving forward to developing a full Post Academy probably within the next year or so. So that should facilitate the recruitment of our local people to work for
Nice.
us, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commander. Okay. Seeing none, I think our screens are locked again.
If I could make a suggestion, I think also that I can make the edits that Councilwoman Vegas Walker
Walker.
would like. And also, I might be able to add some language in relation to clarifying the ratio in relation, so that, because it really just comes out of your general plan, and I agree with you, there are different policing techniques that really can be much
Not a
more effective in
one
relationship.
size fits all, right? I
Right, but
mean,
it's unfortunately
a lot of
a
things come into
planning
it.
matrix we used many years,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
All right. So we'll be looking for a motion to approve resolution 16-09. Resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro approving the 2016 Service Area Plan prepared for the Imperial County Local Area Agency Formation Commission,
As amended,
as amended.
or modified, whatever word you want to use.
Yeah. There's a motion by Walker, there's a second by Garcia. Further discussion, please ballot. Passes 4-0 with 1 absent. Thank you, Norm. Okay, item number 13, our Central Air Service proposals. Ms. Piedra?
Well, actually, it has your name on it, but it came from my office, that report, and Ms. Zarate, you want to come up and talk about that? It's, there's going to be a meeting next week with the county. This is as much as to place this on the agenda to provide some opportunity for dialogue.
Okay.
And we get indications from the council of anything we need to pass along.
Ms. Zarate?
Yeah, good evening. So we have before you 3 proposals that was submitted to the state for Department of Transportation. 3 services, one is Boutique Air, the second is Great Lakes Aviation, and the third is Molekili Airlines. And they've all 3 submitted proposals to be potentially stationed here at the Imperial County Airport. Their proposals are attached. Just in brief, Boutique Air is looking at offering 24 nonstop round-trip flights on a weekly basis out of Imperial to LAX. They're local. They're out of San Francisco. Their home base is out of San Francisco. The second, Great Lakes, is actually out of Wyoming, I believe, and they're looking at 2 round trips for weekdays and 2 weekend round trips from Imperial to LAX. And Molikili is offering to provide 24 round-trip frequencies during the week, no specific dates or times, from Imperial to LAX. So what we're asking is for a recommendation so that we may write a support letter for one of these airlines.
So the Great Lakes is 14 round trips a week?
They're proposing 2 round trips on weekdays and 2 weekend round trips. So it would be, 14.
14, okay. Okay. Start with Ms. Walker, because I know this is something you probably looked at very
Right,
seriously.
so, and I would ask Mr. Durant to also, when you have the time, to follow up with the Southern California Association of Governments. All the proposals were provided to them. Council may recall that Great Lakes Aviation actually submitted a proposal, point in time that we selected Seaport Air. Do we know, this was also on the County of Imperial's agenda for today. Do we know what action they took?
They had no meeting. I was there. I went to the meeting. There was no meeting. It'll be next week.
They postponed?
I think it was mispublished. KXL had it for the 23rd. Local paper had it for today. So when I was not the only person there. Pardon?
Screwed up again?
Next week?
It's next week.
Yes.
Okay.
So there were but it was a number of people there, and we went into the clerk's office, and they said, it's next week.
Okay, so, well, Mr. Duran, have you had an opportunity to review all 3 of the proposals?
Yes, and as we saw 2 years ago, it has to do with where you're going. Clearly, we tried the Burbank route, and it had some benefits to it, but as we had with the United, having major hub like LAX and access to baggage processing, and check your bags, is an important element. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Rechecking your bag, taking it out, bringing it back in to security when you get to the airport, next airport. So we've looked at that, but didn't go any farther than recognizing those past issues that were brought up by the council.
And that was one of my questions, and I didn't see that in here, and I'm asked the question just in case I missed it. But do any of these proposals have anything in there, in the proposal that they have ongoing relationships with major airlines for the baggage checking and security issues?
I'm just going to say the Hawaiian named one does have a relationship with Alaska Airlines.
Yes, that's the only one, as I recall, that does have a.
Okay.
And I will say that I
That's
had the opportunity to sit in on a conference call with them, and they are very enthusiastic. They're ready to come in and get started. I think that they would be a good fit for us. They said all the right things in terms of customer service. If you go on the website.
Who's that?
Mokulele.
That one, the Mukulele one.
Mokulele.
Mukulele.
I call them the Hawaiian one.
Great Lakes also does have, with American Airlines, Delta and United.
And the only thing is, if you go on and take a look at their customer service ratings, Great Lakes and Boutique both, I don't think, are rated as highly.
I know the Department of Transportation is requesting the letters to be submitted by February 25th, so we are in a short time frame as far as providing a support letter. So we would have to make a decision on a support soon.
Well, the Great Lakes is only proposing 2 flights a day, and the Boutique and Mukulele are doing, what are they doing? They're doing.
Multiple.
They're proposing at least 4, and one of the things that I kind of appreciated about Mukulele is they're essentially, how early do you want to leave and how late do you want to come back?
Which is important for,
And so what we told them is we wanted to be in the air by, 5:45 in the morning, and we want that last flight out of LAX at like 9:30 to make sure that we can do an up and back in one day.
Yeah.
Lots of advantages for all of them flying in and out of LAX. Be able to connect just about anywhere you want to go. If you take a look at page 290, one of the great things about flying into LAX, you're essentially already going to be behind the security, so you
yeah.
don't have to do that again.
And
They
looks like
also have let us know that they have the planes and the pilots ready to go.
And their hub is, or their, looks like their terminal is right next to Alaska Airlines.
Yeah.
Which is a good airline.
I agree. Well, unless the Board of Supervisors just has a really different take on this, for some reason that's not really obvious, my recommendation to the council is that we would submit a letter to the Department of Transportation, DOT, United States DOT, for the Mukulele proposal, recognizing it's contingent upon also being awarded the Visalia EAS.
Comments from council? Mr. Silva? No. Mr. Garcia?
I think it's awfully convenient to already be past the security measures and to have access to that big part of LAX.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That was always a
Customer
problem before.
service really does seem to be their selling point.
Okay, so, Ms. Walker, is that a form of motion?
Yes.
Motion by Walker, second by Silva. Please ballot.
Yeah, we'll have that letter from the mayor's signature shortly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 14, consolidation of Library Board and Community Services Commission. Presentation by Marcela Piedra.
Yes. Good evening again, Mayor, members of the council. The item before you is a process that is being considered as a result of the merging of three departments. Back, as you know, in August of 2014, our city manager, Mr. Ruben Duran, decided to consolidate three city departments, which are the Economic Development, what is known as now the Division, the Library, and the Parks and Recreation, into what is now known as the Community Services Department. For about a year and a half now, we've been operating as the Community Services Department, and staff, obviously from the Library and Parks and Recreation, has been serving each respective board, which is the Community Services Commission and also the Library Board. And so direction was given to staff to determine whether or not there was the possibility of having one board serve both functions. And so what we have here is basically the legal opinion that was obtained as a result of this potential consideration. And just for a little bit of background, and it's actually included in your council report, since the establishment of the El Centro Public Library back in June 29th of 1909, the library has basically been managed by a library board of trustees. This board of trustees was actually created by the California Education Code. So back in 1909, back then that council established the library based upon the California Education Code. As it stands right now, the Library Board of Trustees basically provides administrative direction to the library staff and has been operating for a number of years, obviously since 1909. In relation to the Community Services Commission, this was created by city ordinance, and it was basically created to provide advisory capacity to the Parks and Recreation Department. And of course, Parks and Recreation staff provide administrative services and support to this commission. In relation to the Library Board, there is a 5-member board that serves in the Library Board of Trustees. And again, it's based upon the Education Code. In relation to the Community Services Commission, right now, we have 7 members that are appointed basically by the mayor with the approval of the council. But you may recall that last year, we did, or this council approved adding 2 additional members that would serve the needs of the seniors. However, that process has been placed on hold as we are currently considering whether or not we consolidate functions. Again, the Community Services Commission basically serves in an administrative capacity to Parks and Recreation staff. We did have a meeting on January the 14th, and coincidentally, it was both the meeting of the Community Services and also in the evening, we had the Library Board meeting, and we did bring up this discussion before both groups. Actually, our Mayor, Jason Jackson, did join staff in this conversation and presenting the possibility of merging the functions of these 2 boards. Members of the Community Services Commission, indicated that in order to leverage resources, that it was, a good possibility to consider the merging. And the same sentiment was expressed by certain members of the Library Board of Trustees, is the possibility of combining both efforts and functions. Now, in terms of the legal opinion that was received as it relates to having one board serve both functions, as included in your council report, currently the Library Board has 5 members and the Community Services Commission has 7 members, and again, plus 2 more that have been approved but have not been appointed. One approach would be to leave the city ordinances as they are and appointing 5 members to serve both boards, and 2 that would serve only the Community Services Commission. The second approach would be to amend the city ordinance to reduce the Community Services Commission from 7 to 5, and these same 5 members could be appointed to both boards. Now, everything, of course, would depend on whether or not those members would like to serve in the 2 capacities. So at this time, what city staff is seeking is basically some direction from council as to what would be the preferred approach to potentially consolidating the functions of these 2 Board of Trustees. We did attach, as part of this report, the current members of each of the commissions, commission and the Library Board, with their expiration term date. You will see, for example, as it relates to the Library Board of Trustees, we do have 3 members that their term is going to be expiring on June 30th of 2016. We did receive just recently the resignation by Judy Hashem. So she is resigning from the Library Board. And Mr. Newland did indicate to us during the January meeting that he's not going to seek reappointment. So we are potentially, well, we have basically, I think, well, we're going to be, we lost 1 member already, but we're potentially going to lose another one come June 30th. As it relates to the Community Services Commission, you will see there there's basically 2 members that their term is expiring on May 6th of 2016, and we don't know at this time if they're going to seek reappointment or not. The rest are, their expiration dates end in the year 2017, and then 2018 and 2019. So at this time, if there's any questions, I would be more than happy to answer those, or I'm not sure if our mayor wants to add any additional comments.
No, I just appreciate the time that staff put into facilitating the meetings, and I attended both meetings. Seemed to have positive feedback from both commissions. There is quite a bit of duplicity in the agenda items. And speaking with Marcella, there's been, especially with the Library Commission, a quorum issue with a lot of meetings that weren't able to establish quorum. I think they've now gone to quarterly. Is it quarterly?
The Library Board meetings are monthly.
Are monthly, but we go quarterly on the community services?
That's correct.
Okay, so we've had quorum issues at both commissions. I know there's been times, even the day when I attended, we didn't establish quorum at the Community Services Commission until about 20 minutes into the meeting. So, but the biggest issue is when talking to staff, is there's a lot of duplicity in the same material that's being covered in one meeting as opposed to the other.
Yeah.
So,
Can you expand on that? Because I think that was probably my question. Is there some overlap on items that go to both, right now going to both commissions?
Well, for instance, we've been trying to integrate, like, to give you an example, when we initiated the process for the new library facility needs assessment, we were encouraged, strongly encouraged, and I believe it's obviously a great idea. You know, the library is a city facility. It's just we're providing a different service, and even as we will probably see as we develop this facility study, is that libraries are starting to become more of a community, and I believe in the service area plan it was mentioned, is that they're becoming more of a community oriented type of facility. And so we were encouraged to invite our community services commissioners to that meeting, which in fact we did. So that's one example of overlap. Obviously, the Parks and Recreation is different because we are responsible for basically all city facilities and parks, and reporting on, you know, our recreation activities. So there is that, you know, potential overlap. Obviously, you know, the staff, in terms of administrative support, you know, the library does put together, obviously, its own agenda and its own items, and the same thing with you know, Parks and Recreation. There was a question by some of the members for both boards, is how would we handle the agenda? And maybe if we think about it as an example, how you handle your council agenda. First, you sit in as a city council, and if there's any business for successor agency, then you move into that. So, you know, but of course, we haven't gotten that far because we need the direction as to how we would consider potentially working
And
this.
it also would seem that it will be more efficient for you as, for the staff, or city staff, to be able to prepare for one meeting, one agenda, as opposed to having
That
to
would
do that.
make it easier.
The only concern that I have is I don't want to lose the two members that we promised our senior citizen group that we would incorporate as part of the commission that would specifically look at the needs of elderly. They don't have to be elderly themselves, but kind of appointed by the group. So I'd like to see maybe our new joint commission to have a membership of 7, and that to include two senior advocates.
Ms. Walker?
I'm going to put out a proposal that's a little bit different from what's here. I want to see people that advocate for everything, that aren't limited to, I'm just here for the library, or I'm just here for community services and parks and recreation. I'd like council to consider a 6-member board that has 6 primary members and 6 alternates. And that way we don't lose any of the existing members, and we add the 2 members for the seniors, okay? We would leave it to the mayor to come back using the existing members, and that's assuming that Ms. Hashem and Mr. Newland are not wanting to continue. So we would have 6 primary members, and we would have 6 alternates. And the 6 primary members, 2 of those would be existing library board trustees. We'd have 1 senior advocate as the primary member and the other senior as the alternate. And then 3 members of the Community Services Commission would serve as the existing primary, and 3 would serve as alternates. And I guess that leaves me 1 short. So, but come up with a blending where we don't lose anybody, except maybe through either attrition or attendance issues or something like that. My issue is all of these people have put in a lot of time and are committed. And I just don't want to say no to folks who have demonstrated a calling for public service. So if we come up with maybe a way to retain them, but in different capacities.
What would be the role of the alternate, other than being an alternate for someone? Would they be an alternate for someone specifically, or?
Yes. So if let's say, for example, Orlando Johnson and Rebecca Dennis. If Mr. Johnson is designated as the primary member and Rebecca is the substitute member or alternate member, we would ask the 2 of them to coordinate so that if Mr. Johnson isn't going to be able to be at the meeting, then Ms. Dennis is there as a voting member, so that maybe that helps a little bit with the quorum issues. We wouldn't discourage the alternates from showing up if the alternates would like to be there, but we'd have a primary member who would be the voting member to move business along. I mean, just another idea. This is essentially how we ran the advisory council for the Area Agency on Aging. We have a primary member and a alternate member for different slots, different categories.
The only thing is, I think we'd want to have an
Odd
odd
number?
number, so we'd probably look at like a 7-member, and then if we're going to implement some kind of an alternate system, come up with something there. But
Okay.
then, you know, if we're doing alternates per member, then you're talking about 14. That becomes pretty cumbersome at some point, unless you have
Well,
just
remember, it's
2
only,
alternates at large that can fill in for anybody.
could do that.
Probably that may
I
be a
think
better
that would,
approach.
I would prefer that system that we have,
Okay.
some alternates that are called as, you know, as needed, as opposed
Case
to having
we
two.
don't
Because
have
if you have
quorum.
if you have an alternate that's assigned to somebody that has perfect
Yeah, no.
attendance, that person's never gonna, you know,
Well,
and then you have somebody
I
that's
They can
missing.
I think it
participate,
should
but
not
they're
be
not
assigned to
can't
an
fill
individual.
in
Okay.
for that person. So maybe a proposal of a 7-member board with 2 alternates that are at-large alternates that can fill in for any of the 7 that are missing.
Okay. 7, 2, so that's 9, and right now, we're dealing with 12 people?
Well, we've got 2 that aren't going to,
Yeah.
Okay, so we
Hashem and
got,
Newland are for sure.
well, is Mr. Newland for sure?
Yeah, he
Yes,
told
he
me.
basically
Okay, so we've
indicated
got
that.
3, then we've got the 2 seniors, and then we have 7 members of the CSC.
And I think
So
what
that's 12.
we were discussing was, we would just have everybody, and some people might not, I saw.
May not be interested
I
in
saw
serving on the,
Yeah, Mr. Tyler, I don't know what your, during our discussions, one of the questions is if you're only interested in one or the other, you know, it might not be a fit. And I don't know where you stand on that issue today, but I'm recalling the conversation we had that night was your emphasis is on library, obviously that's your background. And in a structure like this, I don't know if you would want to continue or not, but sure, if you'd like to come up.
I think we have other members from
I
the
appreciate it.
board
So
here.
I'm listed on as the president of the library board.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
everybody that serves on all these commissions has the public good at heart.
Yes,
One of the things that's interesting in the reading of, it's not just a historical thing that the library board was started in 1909, and it's in the state law that the library board has to be 5. It's pretty much black and white. I asked to see a copy of the legal opinion, but there's questions of whether it's available for that. But if you read the education code that establishes the library board, it says it's 5. So not, pardon the metaphor of the strength of it, but imagine the president might really love to appoint 3 people to the Supreme Court right now, you know what I mean? But the Constitution says it's 9, right? And so
yeah,
the ed code says it's 5. So to make it more is problematic. So I don't know how we squeeze everything into it. I really appreciate where you're coming from with wanting to have somebody that's interested in everything and not just the library, not just Parks and Rec. As a volunteer, I look at it in terms of if let's say I was one person selected to serve on everything, I'm like, oh, okay, so now I have to get my bearing on, 12 or 19 parks and be familiar with 19 parks, be familiar with 7 recreational facilities, numerous programs and things like that. I'm interested in a really good outcome. I look at if the Parks and Rec Commission is responsible for overseeing a $11 million aquatic park, and the library board is also at the same time responsible for seeing an $8 million library project. All those things combined at this time, it just seems like a lot on the plate for 5 volunteers. I don't know. So that would be my concern.
guess
I'm
my-
not necessarily against it by any means, but I just have some concerns about what we're putting on the plate of the people that we're asking to participate.
I think, let's ask our city attorney to at least address the first issue that Mr. Tyler brought up. I think you did a legal analysis of that.
Yeah, but in doing the analysis, my assumption didn't contemplate a change in the number. The ed code, as I recall,
Oh.
does say 5 members. So
oh,
I did not research the point as to what exposure the city might have if it chose to appoint more. As I sit here,
well, it says it right there at the bottom of page 299, yeah. shall be managed by a board of library trustees consisting of 5
so-
members.
But if it's managed by, I guess the term managed, so if we have a all-encompassing board of 7, we're still fulfilling that definition of 5. Would that be correct, or?
Well, as I sit here, I would think that when the statute says managed by a board of 5, I would say it contemplates 5. That's why the discussion I had in addressing this contemplated that you would, I think, as was stated during the staff report, you'd either have a 5-person board that served 2 functions, or, and in so doing, you'd reduce the number on your, on the other commission from 7 to 5. Or you would have 5 that served both, and then 2 that served only the 7-member commission. And I think you could do that without any change to your current ordinances. So if you want to increase the number that would address library issues,
So they would just have to separate the items on the agenda as we do with our housing and all that, to separate the items that are library items only and commission items. So,
yeah, I mean, I suppose there are things you could do. You could have 2 members that are non-voting ex officio, things like that, but I'm not sure what appeal that would have to a citizen to be a non-voting.
Well, okay, so I understand Mr. Tyler's approach, that library is your first priority, your first passion with regard to this particular item. Is that a similar sentiment that we're getting from other folks that serve on one or the other, that they're really just interested in Parks and Recreation and the library stuff not so much, or?
Ms. Bluff, if I could be heard on that.
Sure.
My name's Tom Berry. I don't know who to give this piece of paper to.
Come up to the mic, Tom.
Okay, I don't know who to give this paper.
You can give it to Marcelo.
Sorry. I've been on this board over 20 years. It is my heart and soul. It's my investment in this community. It has been the whole time. I worked my tail off to get on this board, to be honest with you. It took me about 3 years. And I think there are people that are definitely, they're going to be for one or the other. That's just all there is to it. In fact, Ms. Hashem advised Mr. Banks when she gave him her resignation that she really would do anything she could for libraries, but she really had no interest in Parks and Recreation. She thought they were wonderful, but she had no interest in them. And I think Mr. Tyler's comment is absolutely valid too. I don't really want to be driving, well, hell, I can't drive anymore. So I can't very well go tour every park in the city.
So, Mr. Barrington, so what do you think of the structuring of the agenda so that, and maybe you alternate 1 month, all the library issues come first and then the...
I think it's a quintessential example of it's not broke, why fix it?
But I think it is broke,
Why?
because you guys can't make quorum.
That's not true any longer, Mr. Mayor. That was a period, we had a rough stretch there. And fortunately, Mr. Banks got people's attention. We haven't had a problem with it for months now. And there was a combination of factors. For one thing, we had people whose kids were graduating from, of all places, USC. To me, that's not a legitimate reason to not show up. But nonetheless, somebody didn't want to show up. We had people get sick. That does happen. But Mr. Banks got people's attention, and since then, we've had pretty much perfect attendance. We have not had the problem of not having quorum. We did have that problem at times. And heck, I'm on the law library board. Occasionally, we don't have quorums there as well. It just, sometimes it happens. Thursday nights can sometimes be awkward. One concern I have too is my understanding of the Parks and Recreation Board meets in the afternoon. I'm retired, but everybody else that's on the board with me works, and generally they're self-employed. They're not going to be in a position to just take off for 2 or 3 hours, depending on the agenda. There's also a concern being expressed about the burden on the staff and duplication of effort, and I don't really think there is any to speak of, to be honest with you. Our meetings are generally relatively quick. Once in a while, things can get messy and gnarly. If that happens, it's very easy. Any of us can call for a special meeting. We can do that in 24 hours' notice. There's no reason we couldn't do that if we needed to, and probably get the city attorney there at that time. Speaking of the city attorney, I would have loved to have seen Mr. Morita's opinion, because I have the highest esteem for Mr. Morita. I've worked with him for a number of years. But until I see his opinion, I'm not going to agree or disagree with what he's stating. As they say, it's just not going to work real well. You're not getting any benefit from this. I understand what you're saying, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that. But I don't think you're really getting a benefit.
Well, I think
Calexico has the same situation we do. They have one person who's got oversight over actually 3 departments: Parks and Recreation, the library, and the Arts Council. And she has different boards for, I'm not certain of the Arts Council. I think the Arts Council even has its own board. But I know the Parks and Recreation has its own board, as does the library. There doesn't seem to be a problem with it. Same thing with Costa Mesa, and they've got a lot bigger town to deal with, and they've got a huge plan. In fact, if you ever have a chance to go to their library, you really want to go there.
I guess the unfortunate part of this is that we specifically presented this at both commissions to get the feedback, and the feedback from the commissions from both bodies at the time when we discussed this were all positive, that they thought that combining them would be good, that it would decrease duplicity, it would help staff time, it would help in quorum, and now today I'm hearing something different.
Well, Mr. Mayor, for one thing, the way it was characterized, at least in the staff report I saw that was part of your backup material, said it was warmly embraced. It was certainly not warmly embraced by my body. We were polite. I may be Irish, but I've learned to control my temper. I just listen to things and I'm polite and non-committal. There were some comments that were relatively positive. I don't dispute that, from 2 people. There were other comments, like case in point, Ms. Hastrom. She's resigned because of this. And if I may, just with a clean record, if you'll please, if I can just ask Mr. Banks to confirm, is what I just said about what Ms. Hastrom told you as to why she resigned, is that an accurate statement? That is an accurate. Okay, thank you, sir. I just want to make sure you had a clean record.
Ms. Hastrom wasn't at the meeting for.
I think she wasn't at the meeting you were at, as I recall.
Yeah.
But she'd heard about it, and then she just didn't, well, she was at the next meeting and heard about it. No, I take it back. We didn't have a next meeting. She turned in her resignation before that meeting.
Okay. All right.
We have more members
Is there
here.
other members that want to speak on this issue?
Maybe.
Make sure you state your name and for the record.
Adrian Perez, Library Board. Because how we said, yes, it was positive at the meeting, but I think it's more, we just had more time to actually kind of contemplate it, think about it, let it sink in. And some of the issues that I know at least came up for me were, okay, one of the main points was, okay, it was more efficient for staff, but that's just the paid staff. What about all the volunteers? So you're decreasing time on one, but yet you're increasing time for all the other members, because now we have to deal with the library and the parks part. For me, I'm not completely against it. It's just I know how some people are saying, I just want library, I just want parks. And the way I kind of see it is like high school, a high school teacher. They just want to teach art, they just want to teach math or science. Like you don't have, like elementary level, they teach a broad spectrum. But if someone is just completely focused on library, completely parks, they're going to put everything into that. If an issue comes up with the library, they're going to be like, whatever. I don't see them as putting in too much effort into it. It's just like if you're passionate about something, that's where you're going to go with. If you're just whatever. So there won't be as much thought into it, or they won't care whether it passes or not, whatever the issue may be. And for me, so that's what I'm saying. For me, I'm not really against it. It's just you haven't really given a reason to be for it.
I'd like to think that our volunteers from our commissions do it because they want to make El Centro better, not necessarily because they're, some people are more passionate about one item as opposed to the other, but ultimately I think the ultimate goal of all of our volunteers is to make El Centro better. So I don't know that I necessarily agree with if their passion isn't necessarily an aquatic center that they're not going to care, because they still are residents of El Centro and they still want to make that aquatic center the best it can be for the residents. So I think that, and if that's the case and there just really is no desire, then the option is that, and what we had discussed was everybody had the opportunity to submit an application to be part of the new commission, and maybe some people didn't want to be, or there might be other people that might want to be. So I think, Mr. Silva, you had something?
Well, I am in favor of some kind of consolidation, but I think that given the discussions that we've had, perhaps it would be wise, Mr. Mayor, to bring it back in 30 days, kind of work with both commissions and look at how we can develop a plan that's workable. Like I said, I am supportive and would like to see some kind of consolidation, but I think there's too many unanswered questions. The information given to us by our city attorney, it's important, and how do we address, state code, state law, and maintain that. So I'd like to perhaps ask that this item be brought back to us in 30 days or 45 days with another plan that's workable for both entities.
I agree with that, and I think our city attorney can maybe dive into this a little bit more as far as the structure. I think there was some consensus that we'd like to maybe a 7 with a 2 alternate kind of system, and I don't know if that's something that can be done with the ed code, or if it would just mean a restructuring of the agenda to be heard on as far as separating library issues as opposed to the entire agenda. Ms. Walker?
Well, I think we have a couple more people that wanted to speak.
Okay. And then just
Thank
one thing,
you.
I guess the big thing is also, since it's kind of just through on us, I guess we would just kind of want to list basically the structure of how it would work, all the meetings, or just kind of general idea, so that way the board's
And
not
I think
all
Mr.
completely
Tyler
lost.
had a point too. I mean, what does that Community Service Commission agenda currently look like? I mean, would I be sitting through a 2-hour meeting talking about Parks and Recreation and summer, programs, or my library issues, those two, and then I'm out the door?
I like both, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dodge?
My name is Robin Dodge, and I've been on the CSC for about, I think, 8 years now. Anyway, one thing, I'm sorry, I missed the last meeting that you guys had in January. You kind of know how I feel. I let Marcella know how I feel. I'm totally supportive of anything the council wants to do. I think it's for the betterment of the community. One thing that wasn't mentioned is we have a foundation. Okay? So, we have 2 people on the library, 2 people on the CSC and the city council, which is Alex Cardenas, as you know. Rich Ryan is our vice president. Secretary, David Tyler is the treasurer, and Tom Barrington is one of our members. So, the library board, as well as the CSC, when we merge, or whatever is going to come about in the next couple months, they need to make a decision who's going to serve on this foundation. Now, with the Community Services Commission, we meet quarterly, which worked out better for us that way because we noticed every time we were meeting, it was the same thing we were discussing. And so now with the quarterly, I think that's worked out really well with Marcella. But the foundation meets monthly at night. And I think Alex isn't here, but David is the last Thursday, I think, that we're meeting of the month, or Tuesday? Something like that. Okay, yeah, and as you can see with the foundation, our work has been very important because we've given out some really good money to the city of El Centro. So that's one thing I want both boards to think about, that whoever doesn't want to serve or can't serve, we need to fill that.
I think that's part of probably the larger discussion that needs to come back, because we have one board that's meeting monthly and one that's meeting quarterly.
Yes,
So
and the
would
foundation
this
meets
combined,
monthly.
would this combined board meet every other month,
Every 2
or
months.
what?
Maybe, yeah.
Every other month?
Maybe
And I
every month.
think too is, I remember at our last foundation meeting, the library board and the CSC, we work really together. We have a very dynamic board, and I'm really happy to be a part of the foundation. But I just remember we were giving money to parks for all kinds of stuff, and that question came up, what about the library? The library needs something, right? So we gave $1,000 towards the library to help them out with one of their events. So I know we all work together. So it's just a matter of just finding that common ground with everybody. So you have my support, whatever you guys want to do, whatever the boards want to do. But eventually we have to think about El Centro is growing. And within the next couple of years, we're going to have to merge. So you have my full support, whatever direction you want to take,
Thank
for
you,
whatever
Tom.
that's worth.
Mr. Rodriguez? Yeah, we could do that too, if you had some.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I think we've forgotten our residents in this whole big process. When I got the email the other day, I was thinking, well, does Joe Blow, my neighbor next door, know? No. Does Jim Smith, another neighbor, know? No. And I think we kind of missed I know there's a change that's coming up. Maybe it'd be a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I don't know. But if our residents, rank and file people, don't know, maybe we should do a survey, get their input, discussion, if it's good for them or it's not good for them. Because, I mean, they give us input, maybe positive, maybe sometimes negative, but I think they need to be involved too in the process. I mean, I don't want them to be confused. I don't want you guys to get 1,000 phone calls or 8,000 emails. I think they have a right to be heard. I know there's gonna be a change. I was open to the change. That one time that you went to the meeting, Mayor, that's the only time we didn't have a quorum until the one member showed up in the meeting. But it was, it doesn't happen often. It just happened to be there when you were there, and it's unfortunate. It looked like we didn't have one, but it's just one of those things, events that happens. But it doesn't happen very often. And wherever you guys decide to go, then we just roll with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Banks?
Just like to bring up a couple of points. Number one, you said the library board was broken. Over the 10 years that I've been the director, we have not had more than one meeting out of the year. They meet every month that maybe we didn't have a quorum. Last year we had 2, but those, according to the rules, if they don't attend a meeting, there has to be an excuse, and if they don't attend 2 meetings or 3 meetings in a row, then they can be dismissed. So we haven't been broken. They have worked. Number 2, when you consider that the library board is an administrative board, they meet monthly. All of our purchases are approved by them before they're turned in. They have, if you look at the rules and the Ed Code, says they have the authority to buy and sell property. They have the authority to choose the library director and the staff, and to, if they wanted to determine what their pay should be. According to the Ed Code, they have that authority. Now, they don't do that, or they're not doing that, but those things all need to be considered when you're considering what you're doing with the library board, because they are an administrative board, which gives them a lot of power and a lot of authority over the library.
Point well taken. And I will pull back my statement, Mr. Banks. I didn't mean to say it was broken as a whole. I'm just saying that there was issues that were reported to the council of quorums, so.
I support bringing this back in 30 to 45 days with a little more definition as to frequency of meetings, number, maybe alternative structure.
How the foundation might work
How
into
the
that.
foundation's going to look, if we're going to do a combined agenda. I hear that they meet at different times. One maybe meets during the day, one meets in the evening. I mean, what's really, if we're going to bring this together, what's going to work best for everybody?
Yeah.
And not just for the current people that are serving, but as we move forward and start to replace members for whatever reason, so.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
Mr. Garcia, did you have anything?
I concur with the council. I think we need to look at the logistics and how this would actually work and see exactly what's going to be happening in terms of agenda, and especially if they're going to be controlling money and purchasing things of that nature. We need to definitely get more detail.
Okay. Marcelo, we can work with the city attorney on bringing this back in 30 days? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 15, attorney title designation.
Okay, and I am going to recuse myself with regard to this particular item. I don't recall participating in a discussion with regard to the attorney title designation, so that tells me that it probably took place when I was absent outside the room.
Correct.
Right? Okay, so.
We won't leave you out there that long.
I hope not. I'm gonna bring a coat.
Dennis, do you want to kind of explain where we are and where we've come from, or?
Sure. This all came back to you because back in December, before I was appointed, I came to learn that Mrs. Walker participated both in the closed session and then in the contracts, by which my services were retained on an interim basis. Once I found out that she participated, I was concerned because I am a tenant of Walker and Driscoll Professional Law Corporation. Mrs. Walker's husband is a participant in that corporation, and by virtue of the fact that she's married to Mr. Walker, she has a community property interest in that corporation, and hence the rent I pay would be a source of income to her. And so my suggestion was that she recuse herself and that the council basically start from scratch. And so it would have the opportunity to retain me during this period of time you're recruiting, or not. And so that was done. Now, in the course of that, I gather, a question has come up as between what should I be called during this interim period. And I think, as I indicated to the council last time, your staff prepares documents that for my signature, and I've seen various designations for my title, and in talking with Mr. Childers, and I think he confirmed at the last meeting, same thing with him. You see documents where city attorney, interim city attorney, associate city attorney. And so as I gather, this item is before you so that staff and including Mr. Childers and I will know who should respond when someone yells out a particular title. So that's basically why it's before you.
So from a legal perspective, then, does it make a difference? Is a signature different when you are signing as an associate as opposed to an interim city attorney?
I don't believe so. I mean, you regularly see documents where, I mean, you take a large office, for example, Los Angeles City Attorney, you'll see, or the Attorney General. Ms. Harris's name appears, and then it says by Deputy Attorney General. I think the same thing applies. City attorney is whoever the city, in this case, interim city attorney is, who signs. If it's the interim, then it'll be it'll say interim. If it's associate, it'll be associate. And I think from binding the office standpoint, they have the same effect. So I think, as I indicated at a prior meeting, I think it's your call. I'm here on a I was going to say interim, on a short-term basis, and so in talking with Mr. Duran and Mr. Childers, the workflow I gather has been kind of figured out, and so that part is working well. As far as tonight's meeting is concerned, I conferred with Mr. Childers, and he said, gosh, to the extent there were items on the agenda that involved the city attorney, you were the one involved, and so he said it makes less sense for him to attend. But I think he and I and Mr. Duran can kind of work out what would happen in that regard. I mean, because it really, and you see, like with county council office, for example, county council might attend the Board of Supervisors meeting, but any one of the deputies might have actually done the work, and then they brief the county council, and it's the county council that makes the presentation. So we'll work with Mr. Duran, and depending on the way your agenda looks, it may be me, maybe Mr. Childers, maybe both.
If I may, Mayor.
Yes.
Part of the confusion is city attorney tendered her resignation. I was out of the country. So when I returned, she did report to me. She came to my office, indicated that there was going to be engagement of the attorneys, and also indicated that title designation should be the following, which I submitted a memo to the staff. This is how it's going to work. Marita Point looked at that and looked at some other things and said, you know what, that couldn't have occurred because it was never on an agenda. So however that occurred, this is to clean that up and fix it. Nothing terrible came from that process of of her indicating the designation. But I think this resolves that matter. We know it, particularly when it comes to, we'll get letters directed to the city attorney. Well, I'd like to have an idea of who would be that designee, just in whatever litigation comes to the door. Now, how it gets farmed out and allocated, they've worked that out quite well. But I think there needs to be some designation of who's your lead attorney for the things that don't fit.
And I think for purposes of our structure, the designee of whoever that interim city attorney would, for the most part, be attending the council meetings. But as Mr. Morita said, not necessarily always, because if there's a conflict from, which we're well aware of, is that both Mr. Childers and Mr. Morita have different conflicts depending on what the issue may be, might bring in the other attorney for that particular item or for that particular meeting. So I think the discussion that we had at an earlier time was to designate Mr. Childers as that interim attorney and Mr. Morita as the associate attorney. But we felt that because the workflow is working, in essence, and in my conversations with both Mr. Morita and Mr. Childers, I don't think that we as a council need to get into micromanaging who does what. We'll let them handle that as far as their either levels of expertise or comfort or whatever the case may be. And for purposes of designation for what Mr. Duran is talking about of who that initial workflow would go to, we would designate Mr. Childers as the interim and Mr. Morita as the associate.
I will concur with that. I'll make a motion on that, given the fact that it appears that all the logistics and the workflow is working well and will continue to work well. So with that, I'll make a motion.
Yeah, there's a motion by Silva, second by Garcia. Ballot.
I have the motion carries 3-2.
3 with one
With
absent, 1 abstention.
Correct.
I do want to make a mention, there's a reason why Mr. Morita is held in high regards in the legal community because of obviously his level of integrity, and to bring this back to us because this was something we all missed, and Mr. Morita saw it as a potential issue, and so I want to commend him publicly that for him bringing that to us so we can clean that up. So thank you. Okay.
Somebody get Ms. Walker back?
Or you want somebody? Okay. All right, we'll move on to item number 17. I'm sorry, item number 16.
16.
16. Okay, item number 16, request for proposals for legal services. This is a issue that Ms. Walker and I have worked on as far as establishing RFP, and I believe it's in our packets. In discussing this with staff, specifically Ms. Roddy, this afternoon, the one change that was proposed from the releasing of this RFP would be to push all the dates back 1 week, as staff is working on finishing up Mardi Gras for the city, and we have a whole list of people we want to release this to next week, but staff felt like we needed an extra week to do so. So, any questions or?
Yeah. So I thought the task force was going to basically do an evaluation of both scenarios, the scenario of maintaining our legal department with an in-house attorney and staff, or the option of requesting a proposal for legal services. So did we look at that, or are we assessing that this is a preferable method as opposed to the other, or where are we at with that?
I think that the thought process is the RFP schedule is going to take time. The evaluation of whether or not we keep an in-house, solely in-house, that evaluation's not going to take as much time, and we can do both
Okay.
parallel. And it could, the ultimate determination, of course, is going to be when we evaluate both side by side. So from a timing perspective, we needed to get the RFP out the door, and we can do the other evaluation as to, do we look around and do the, go out for interviews and all of that. We did meet with the HR director, who reminded us that the last time we did this, went out for city attorney, we did not come back with a whole lot of candidates. And we had, I think, did we float it twice? Did we do it back to back? So we will revisit that. We have had some preliminary discussions, but we're thinking that the RFP is definitely where we want to go. In terms of the advertising, so in addition to pushing the dates out a week, in terms of the advertising, we will be contacting the League of California Cities, the city attorney group or section. We will want to look at getting it posted onto our website so that people are aware of it. We want to contact all of the Southern California Bar Associations specifically to let them know that the RFP is there and available. We also have a list of firms that we are aware of that do this kind of work routinely and come highly recommended, and that we haven't decided yet if we're going to send the RFP to them or just send them an email to advise them that the RFP is available on the website.
And I think one of the other thought processes is we know what the in-house costs are.
And what that would look like.
And what that would look like as far as structure and cost, but we don't know what this is. And so we submit this out, hopefully we get some good responses, and then we have at least some apples to apples to look at and see. At that time, then it's a better way of doing the evaluation to decide which way we go. This is not going to be a binding RFP or anything, so. Any other questions or comments?
I think it'd be a good idea to get some numbers, so we have something to compare to.
Okay.
Okay. There's a motion by Silva, a second by Walker. Please ballot. Passes 4-0 with one absent, and that is RFP as presented with the 1 week pushback on all dates. Okay. All right. At this time, we will recess to our successor agency, or do we have to adjourn as? Do we adjourn as council? Diane?
No.
No, we just
recess.
We're just recessed into successor agency. Redevelopment Agency, item number 17, substitution of trustee and partial reconveyance for Thomas Merrill Enterprises, Inc. loan.
Yes. Basically, this item is related to an owner participation agreement that, of course, now dissolved redevelopment agency executed back in January 20th of 2010. At this time, the owners of Direct Auto Plaza are actually trying to refinance their financing for that particular dealership. And in going through that process, they discovered that, and I have a map here that kind of shows the general area there that we're talking about. It appears that back in 2010, when the now dissolved redevelopment agency executed this agreement, it appears that because Thomas Merrill Enterprises, Inc. does in fact own, there's 4 lots that are actually part of this development here, and those lots include the Desert Auto Plaza, the new Honda dealership, Honda and Hyundai dealership. And so when the title company completed this transaction, they inadvertently added lot number 1, which is where the site of the Desert Auto Plaza is, and they shouldn't have been added to that. So what this action is doing is it's basically reconveying or partially reconveying in removing the lien on lot number 1, which is obviously was never the intent of the redevelopment agency to encumber that lot because it was not part of the transaction. The assistance that was provided at the time in 2010 for this project was actual financial assistance to underground. You may recall, and you can see it, that the Date Canal runs north of that site, and it was an open drain, and so now, you know, it's a landscaped area, and it serves as retention. So owners approached the city, or actually the redevelopment agency at the time, to assist them with that project. And so the agency provided a loan to them in the amount of $596,742 to assist with that project. And as you know, the project is completed. It has been completed. And we're asking to approve this substitution of trustee and partial reconveyance so that lot number 1, which was inadvertently placed as part of the lien, is removed. So I don't know if there's any questions.
Yeah, I'd move staff's recommendation. Sounds like it makes sense.
We need the other screen. There we go. Okay, there's a motion by Walker. Second by Silva. Any other discussion, comments? I'll just, for the record, I was contacted by First Foundation Bank, and unfortunately, Mr. Merrill has about $300,000 being held up because of this issue. So it's good that we're getting this corrected and he can get his money back. So, all right, please ballot. Passes 4-0 with 1 absent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Public comments? Anybody from the public wishing to address the council at this time? Seeing none, I'll return back to council for task force reports and council reports. We'll combine them. You want to start with Mr. Garcia? Or did you have something?
Well, because the Tylers are here, I was hoping that we could maybe as a council address the email from Mr. Heald. This was addressed to you, Mr. Silva. I don't know if you had wanted to introduce the item or...
I was going to, but go ahead.
No, well, we all know that there was a house fire involving a home in the 700 block of Sandalwood going on 2.5 years ago. We had a big group of people here, I think it was in October-November timeframe, letting us know that very little construction had taken place with regard to the house. There was a big mess in the front yard. The house does have a chain link fence that extends out in front of it. I think that Ms. Villacana, a couple of weeks ago, there was maybe some contact with the property owners saying we wanted to meet with you and perhaps involve the city attorney. Right around that same time, there was kind of a little bit of activity. They moved some roofing material up on top of the house where it has sat since it was put there. Now, Mr. Heald is asking that this issue needs revisiting, and soon, please. These people are just spitting in the eye of their neighbors, and they just don't give a damn how they are devaluing and downgrading the street by their actions or lack of the same. Goes on to talk about a contractor who's only going to be working if he gets paid in advance, and he suspects that that's part of the problem, is that they are hiring questionable workmen, probably not licensed. Chain link fence is still up. Believes that the neighbors are actually living in the granny flat that is behind the house. There's still a lot of debris in the house, in front of the house. Bare dirt where we once had a lawn. Next door neighbor is complaining that there's mice that are breeding prolifically in the yard, and that those are coming onto their property because they have dogs and they put dog food out for their own dogs. It's now been 2.5 years since the fire, and the patience among the neighbors is running out. There's a request that perhaps the acting city attorney could give us some advice, the city, as to what options we may have with regard to moving the process along. At a minimum, what the neighbor is asking is that they take down the front yard fence, haul away all the junk furniture and assorted debris, restore proper and approved residential landscaping, and clean up the backyard to eliminate the mice nesting. City Council members, thanks in advance for your guidance and action on the above plea. We do not wish to call for another abatement consideration, but we will organize the neighbors to come again if it is necessary to re-emphasize our concern over the serious and long-delayed damage to an otherwise nice neighborhood.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Walker, for bringing that up. I was going to bring that up as well. And as you recall, when we were here last time, the basic advice that we got was that it was not a health issue, it's not a health and safety issue, and so therefore, the options that we had to force the property owner to expedite this were limited. I feel for the neighbors. I wanted to ask either staff or city attorney if we in fact have any additional options or leverage where we can mandate that, that the house be brought up to adequate living conditions, or whether we are still limited on mandating that, or I don't know, Mr. Maria, if you have any.
Without knowing more, I don't know how much I can add at this point. You mentioned that there is not health and safety issues.
Right.
Normally, my observation is that with houses that are in disrepair like that, usually you have staff of the opinion that it is a health and safety issue from a fire standpoint or something like that. I'm aware that the city has retained a law firm that basically specializes in these type of code enforcement matters. I don't know if they were consulted in this matter.
I don't think that we're there. Maybe Norma, can you expand?
And Ms. Villacaña, to the extent you've been in contact with the owners, if you can give us any updates.
Okay, thank you. Yes, approximately 2 weeks ago, we met with both property owners. The contractor was there, and Mr. Childers was there, and staff. Basically, we wanted to meet. We told them we need to get this project going. And they went through the whole history of the delays that's been happening, which are, according to them, out of their control. They did mention that every time there is a draw for payment for the contractor, it has to go through not only the insurance company, but the bank, and like 3 different hands have to approve that draw. And someone from the insurance company has to come down and do the inspection before that draw is released. So whenever they're ready for a payment, it's taking between a month to 2 months to actually get paid on that, for that work that's been completed. That's one of the issues that they mentioned. Obviously, the contractor mentioned that he doesn't have the resources to advance the work or advance buying supplies or materials without knowing when he'll be guaranteed a payment. So that they've been going back and forth, not only with the insurance company, but also with the mortgage company. Apparently, the mortgage company also has to sign off on the draws for payment. And what we did request is the issue about the fence. We did talk about the fence. One thing about if they were to remove the fence, even though it's aesthetically it's not pleasing, it's more for security reasons. That fence will be removed after the construction is done.
Well, but Mr. Shield has a point. Why don't they just put in a burglar alarm? I mean, guys, you know that I live like a block and a house from a block and a half from this house, and so I've tried not to bring it up at every meeting, but it's a nightmare to have to see that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I drove by there after the last time we discussed this, and I drove by there over the weekend because I just wanted to see it for myself, and nothing has.
It's a
nothing has
beautiful,
happened.
beautiful neighborhood, and for them to continue, we're going on. It's going to be 3 years this fall. Is that right? And I don't know if Mr. Tyler.
So if Mr. Childers was there, did he
He
do you have the opinion that we have any legal ability?
No, we did request from the contractor and the homeowner a schedule, and the contractor basically says, I'll be honest with you, the way we've been going with the insurance and the mortgage company delaying payments, probably won't be until the end of the year. That's what he told us. So we asked him to, and he's supposed to provide us a schedule as to what he's anticipating. When is the debris going to be removed? They were going to finish the roofing, and I'm not sure why they did not finish the roofing. And his comment was, as soon as we finish this part of the work, a lot of that debris is going to be removed because it's not, I cannot, we got to pick up everything at the same time. I don't want to bring in and so those are the issues that and Mr. Childers was there, and
But it sounds like that may not even be a binding schedule. I mean, so what happens if they miss the target? Do we have any ability to do anything?
from conversations with the Mr. Childers, no, unless there's a health and safety issue. And the property owners are living in the back house. They're saying they want to be there because just to make sure that they don't get broken into and, people stay out of it.
There's nothing to steal. I mean, I don't understand this whole concept of, the house being broken into.
Do we know if the contractor that you spoke to, is he even licensed? Does he have
Yes,
insurance?
it's Mr.
Heard of it.
JCS Construction, yes.
What would categorize something as a health and safety issue?
Fire hazard, debris, if there was something blocking pedestrian walkway, or if there was mountains of piles of dirt where the children or, passerbys could go in, those would be the fire hazards. Another delay that they did mention is that because apparently that the house had a lot of custom-made amenities. It's taking longer when they order windows, it has to be special windows, the doors, special doors, because it's not, they're replacing special-made,
What about the
We're
mice?
talking 3 years, come on.
What about the mice situation? Is that something that we could get the health department involved
We
with?
could look into it. I hadn't heard that about the mice, but we can certainly look into it. We can contact the health department.
What I'm thinking is if that's a result of all the debris just being stacked up, and we get the health department involved, maybe we can force the issue of having them bring in a dumpster, at least get all the debris and stuff
Right.
cleaned up, and then have an exterminator come in and deal with.
We can
with that.
certainly look into that. I wasn't aware of about the mice.
That might be something we can use to
Yeah.
kind of, a hook that we can use. I don't know.
David or Joan, did you want to add anything, or you have to look at that every day, right out your window?
I'm in a little bit of a different situation with these people. I had written the insurance on their house before it burned down. If you were to ask them if you wanted to verify what they're saying about the insurance, if you were to get maybe a release from them such that I could maybe feel more comfortable releasing that information to you, I'd be happy to it, but I don't really feel comfortable talking about it without some kind of release. I'll tell you that in general, an insurance claim on a fire, there's two settlements. There's an actual cash value settlement, which is just paid cash to the property owner, and they are under no obligation to spend that money on the property as far as the insurance company goes. You could spend it on a cruise, you could buy a new car with it, you could do whatever you wanted. And then after once you begin to do your replacement and you eclipse the money that was paid to you under the actual cash value settlement, then you do start getting what's called the replacement cost second half, and you do need to start showing documentation of that, but I'm not aware of, in general, anybody needing to show documentation when they're spending the first maybe 2/3 of a settlement on property. So I'm not sure of what details are going on in this regard. This is the first I've heard of that there's been anything. But any further than that, I'd rather not say in specific to this without a release.
So maybe, Ms. Viacani, if you could contact the owners and see if they'd be willing to give a release, which will probably speak highly to whether they're telling the truth or not. And then maybe we could ask Mr. Tyler to come back and share with us whatever
Or I can get the
information you
insurance
can at
company
that
adjuster
point.
to come and talk to you or something like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
I definitely
yes.
would like to see something like that because, you know, I definitely feel for the residents on that street. We had a fire last year on our street, several houses away from mine, and that home, I believe, was damaged more so than the one on Sandalwood. And it looks like there's been an enormous amount of progress to get that house back
Yeah.
up to shape.
It's Dr. Murphy's house.
And I haven't
Yeah.
seen anything on Sandalwood. And I drive by there because of the recent issue that's been coming up, and it did come up during the campaign. So I did look at the home, and I haven't seen one change other than some piles being moved.
I feel for Mr. Heald in his frustration, and, you know, he talks about the roof. He lives across the street from me too, you know, so these two houses are his house and this are almost side by side, so I look at them both. He put a new roof on his house last week, and it took his contractor 3 days to entirely remove and replace his roof, right? And then, so 2 doors down, there's this house with a roof that's been in that, you know, state for several weeks. And so I can understand from his point of view where he's like going, wow, how come my guy can do it and
Yeah.
these guys can't? So anyway.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to maybe get an update in 2 weeks and as to where we are in terms of getting a release from the property owner so we can investigate the insurance question better, the issue on the mice and the rodents, and see if that can trigger some action from the city or any other legal option, Norma, that we can have to try to push this forward.
Can we have it listed on the agenda? With the property address? And then we can let neighbors know that it'll be heard.
Yeah, and definitely want to see some follow-up on the mice issue, because if they are breeding in the debris, which is common when you have construction projects, then I would like to see if other neighbors can verify those claims. That definitely, I believe, would fall under health and safety.
Okay. All right, well, we kind of got off on.
Oh, sorry, okay,
So
so
you
that
might as well
was it.
finish,
Okay,
yeah.
so, well, what I wanted to share, this was really a lot of fun. 4 of the council members to make it to the
missed
MEG event, and look how great those pictures turned out, I think, and we left a spot for you right
We're
there.
gonna
to
Photoshop me in?
Photoshop you
Awesome.
in. But the air show gala was really a lot of fun. I think that we should put that on our website. Had an opportunity to attend the 6th Annual Youth Summit, sponsored by the Probation Department and the Juvenile Justice Commission. That was last Saturday for some at-risk youth, which was really well-attended and well done. Probably the highlight since our last meeting, I did get to go to Washington, D.C. I was there from the 6th through the 9th to attend the National Conference of Regions. A couple of really interesting presentations that I was able to attend. One of them was on evolving economies, rethinking growth strategies. There was a gentleman there who's the program director from the Appalachian Regional Commission. And that regional commission is like 13 states in a federally designated area. They get like $51 million a year to work on just issues that are unique to that area. So if you go on their website, I think you'd kind of find their strategic plan pretty interesting. Another session I went to, Ending Homelessness in America, and the United States Conference of Mayors has come out with this hunger and homelessness survey that I want to share with our local homeless task force. There's been a huge emphasis lately on veteran homelessness and what can be done to combat that. And there's might be some strategies that we're able to utilize there. I do go Thursday, Friday to my first League of California Cities Board of Directors meeting in Ontario, and we'll brief the council on that upon my return.
Thank you.
Next time you should tell Steve when you're leaving town.
Why? Does he not
And
know?
When were you in Washington, Ms. Walker?
Yeah.
I was, oh,
Washington DC?
Washington,
When were
why
you?
was I?
No, when?
When? I was there the 6th through the 9th.
Cold?
It was very cold.
Snow?
No snow.
I'm
Just
going in-
missed it.
I'm going in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Do you want me to get you copies of that?
Yes.
Okay, I will get copies. Did you want a copy? Mr. Silva?
Of the emptiness? that
Yes,
was
yes,
there?
I would.
Copy?
I would.
It really is a great picture, guys. I mean, we're all
I
dressed
just got
up.
engaged and it was
right?
Valentine's weekend. I had, responsibilities.
Right.
Yeah. You guys have all been married for a long time, so it doesn't matter anymore.
Yes, it does. It matters
You don't even
a
tell Steve when
lot,
you're leaving for
doesn't it?
DC. He said told me you were going to Costco.
That's right.
Mr. Garcia?
I just want to echo that we did have a great time at the gala. It was a very good community event. There's a lot of support. It's good to see that we have that kind of community support for something as important as the naval base in our city. So.
Mr. Silva?
I attended the update on the marijuana initiative and the law, along with the mayor, and also Norma was there, and Mr. Morita were there, and a number of other people. I think that the biggest question I had wasn't really answered, because I think there's still quite a bit of unanswered questions as far as the whole implementation and options that cities would have. The question I had in terms of taxation, that's still kind of way up in the air as to what the city's abilities will be to tax this if it's approved. So it was very informative. I'm sure Norma is going to probably report back to us again, but I appreciate the opportunity to go. I also attended the air show gala. Very nice. Lots of meat. That steak was enormous. Look forward to the hospital's Mardi Gras dinner on gala on Friday, and then look forward to our parade on Saturday.
And did you want to talk about the?
Oh, yeah,
concept,
yes,
tour?
thank you, Jason, for that. The mayor and I had a meeting with the Mexican consulate a week or so ago, and the consulate is it's gonna come back to the city hopefully soon with a proposal to utilize our old post office pavilion as a cultural center. And have a schedule of events that are planned for the benefit of our community. This kind of ties back into our sisterhood agreement with Mexicali, and another person that was there was from IMACU, which is their cultural department in Mexicali, and we talked about the exchange of artists back both ways, and bringing exhibits and bringing artists. So we have a meeting, we're meeting again next week or a couple, I think it's at the end of the month, and hopefully begin to solidify an MOU that will come back to the council, solidify a schedule of how the post office can be utilized. The Mexican government wants this, we want this, it's a win-win. I think Marcela was there as well, and we see this as being very beneficial to our community, and so thanks to the mayor for being there with us. So I look forward to bringing you a more definitive proposal, an MOU with Mexicali and the consulate and ourselves to kind of to have a better utilization of our old post office pavilion.
I think in that regard, when we've looked at other options for that, one of the things that we've always wanted to improve is the lighting in that area. So if we are moving forward fairly soon with an MOU, maybe we could revisit the lighting right around the old post office pavilion, in particular, the parking lot that is utilized there. 'Cause it's really dark at night.
When, we have a fence project going on there too, don't we? Are we fencing? Yeah, okay. Yeah, as Mr. Silva said, that meeting was very encouraging. I think we're looking at a three-party MOU between the consulate and what's it called?
IMACU.
IMACU, and then the city. And then some of the things that would tie in would be to help us facilitate and broaden our Dia de Muerte celebration, because they would become part of that and help us, broaden that. So I think there's some good.
More face painting?
Yes, absolutely. I told them I'd paint both sides this time.
Okay, good.
So, the marijuana conference was interesting. I think the one thing that changes everything is what they're calling the Parker Initiative, which is, I guess, being put forth by the second in charge of Facebook, evidently billionaire, and he's talking about fully funding an initiative for the November ballot to legalize marijuana in the state of California.
Yeah,
So,
right. Okay.
and obviously, if he is that person, which evidently he is, he's probably going to have access to promote that on Facebook, which is kind of scary. The only other thing I did was Sandra and I gave up our crowns we spent last year as king and queen of Calexico, which is kind of weird, but we were the king and queen for Mardi Gras in Calexico. So we went down to their event, and it was a nice event that they always put on down there. So
I have one more thing I wanted to announce, that I think I had mentioned to you that I had submitted a proposal for the annual conference for the League of California Cities, an idea for a program, and they accepted it. And so it's, the title of the program was What Every Planning Director Wishes City Council Knew About Planning, right?
couldn't have shortened that?
Well, it's kind of the whole concept that she has to sit through, and I thought of Norma specifically when I proposed it. In fact, she's one of the panelists.
She seems thrilled, yeah.
Well, she's one of the panelists, so we're just trying to work through some logistics to make sure that she's able to be there. Because in my explanation, I said, planning directors have to be so political sometimes, politically correct, even though they just wish they could tell the city council, you're being ridiculous. You can't do that. And so kind of the ins and outs of what,
She tells
planning
me that all the
directors.
time, though.
Well, privately,
Oh.
but, so anyway, I was thrilled, and I'm sure it was accepted just on the basis that Norma's gonna be the panelist.
Next time, think bumper sticker.
Bumper sticker, okay.
Shorter title.
Shorter. Okay.
All right, anything else for the good of council? Seeing none, we're
We're
adjourned.
good, okay.